use your own car.
You can't use your own car, and you've got to go steal one. If you're going to steal one, that means stealing a license plate. Stealing a license plate means that you're probably left a witness unless you're skulking around at like 3:30 in the fucking morning in some parking lot that doesn't have cameras, but that's unlikely. What you're probably doing is stealing a car, taking the license plate off of it. I've done this before. Going to a big parking lot, finding another car of the same model that you have, and you know, you're stealing a very common car, right? And then you go and you steal a plate off of a different car, and that plate will probably remain legitimate for a while. Sooner or later, the owner will detect that the plate is switched. But you probably have at least a day. If you're a real, like, you know, if you're a real, like, Murphy's Law guy, you could probably boil it down to, like, a day. I imagine you could get, at the very least, like, 8 hours. You probably have something like 8 hours before that savvy owner detects that the license plate on their car is wrong, right? They probably do see it, but it just probably takes them a couple of days to register, and you don't know how long. It might be, like, a couple of weeks. But when they do, they report that the license plate has been stolen. Nothing ever happens unless they caught you and saw that you had a stolen plate, right? Nothing ever happens. They don't ever use it to catch you or anything like that. And so I have used a stolen car to commit a crime before. I've done it twice. And I'm not proud of this, but I mean, don't do as Donnie Skycat does or whatever. But your Donnie don't do as Donnie Skycat does or whatever, kids, you know, but like if you're gonna, like, this is why being a criminal is so stupid. Usually you have to involve transportation. If you involve transportation, you've either got to steal a car, which you probably don't have the skill set to do, frankly. It's actually kind of a skill set. Stealing a car and getting away with it is actually, I mean, you can do it fairly easily, but I mean, you better go rob that place that you were going to use the stolen car for right the fuck away. I mean, like, right after you steal the car, you need to go to your crime. I'm talking like right there. You don't go home. You don't go take it to some other parking lot or a motel or something. You don't wait any few days to let it cool down or anything like that. The minute that you stole that car, you need to go commit the crime that you stole the car for. This is something that he's talking about, and this is one of the reasons why I just had to leave, like, even the potential of being a criminal anymore. I was like, no, there's so much risk that it's unacceptable that I just couldn't ever take the personal risk anymore. I've got a family, I've got somebody that I love. I don't want to leave them alone. I don't care if we're never together. I still don't want to leave my best friend alone. She needs me. So do my other friends, and I just don't. And so does my family. I don't want to leave them alone. You know. So I don't do stupid things like that anymore. But I think about it all the time. I've got a devious mind like this guy does. I'm like, yeah, well, okay, if you're committing a crime, that means stealing a car. If you're stealing a car, that means committing a crime. If you're committing a crime, that means stealing a car. And it's this never-ending loop of like protecting your ass from RNG, essentially, when you're a criminal. And often that means committing more crimes. Committing more crimes just exposes you to more risk. More risk is a terrible idea for a criminal. You know, good criminals commit their crime and then disappear for 15 months, and then they leave another blip, and then they don't show again for like 3 years, and then they commit another show, and then they disappear again for like another 2 years. Like good criminals, they make big scores, big bangs that they plan for a long time, and they do successfully, like this dude, the Roof Man, and I would say that, you know, it's rare. It's rare for criminals to actually be intelligent. Usually it's the premise of dumb people. So when you hear about a smart criminal, you get kind of impressed. You're like, oh, it's some dude who actually doesn't intend to get caught, you know?
What are you doing?
Almost all the criminals intend to get caught when they do things. You'd be surprised how many times I walked up into a Western Union right in the Walgreens down the street from where I lived for 20 years. You know, the Walgreens that I went to all of my life, I went in there trying to defraud their Western Union for $3,000 and shit like that. I went right into the store because you're just dumb. You don't think about it. You don't think about the risk. You just want the money. It's the premise of a dumb person. You're so desperate that you don't care if they roll you. You know?
And here's another example of Roofman's quite remarkably good.
Go toe to toe in the cell with the fucking pigs for fucking me over in the first fucking place. You know?
After he was caught and handcuffed, he didn't start squirming about while screaming,
No, he thanked them and told them how good of a job he did.
Like
I bet you.
A kipper by the filth.
Nope, I've been stitched up like a kipper by the filth.
Instead, he calmly turned to the
Nope, I bet he thanked them.
arresting officer and noted, You guys did a good job today.
Yep, this is what they do. The smart criminals are like, ah, ha, 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 ha. You're not Moriarty. You're the idiot Flatfoot from down the street. So props to you, sir, for finally defeating me. But I did go successfully 37 years without ever getting caught. Ha ha ha, sir. Thank you for catching me. It is a great load off my mind. I shall tell you everything that I have done now and brag to everybody.
Love to think that the arresting officer proudly responded with, gee, thanks, Ruth.
Nope. More likely they probably suppressed him and broke his ribs.
Probably didn't. However, there remains a question mark here, which has never been definitively resolved. Had the North Carolina police really caught the roofman? Or had they just caught a roofman? The arrested individual was the man who would later go on to assume...
My other problem with a lot of this is cops are really dumb. Cops are really dumb. It's not a job that inspires a lot of intelligence unless you're a detective, I would say, or like some kind of administrator that's actually just genuinely intelligent. It's not a job that requires that much intelligence. It actually requires like chutzpah and hunch, right? Hunch is a word we use to like suss out what people are doing without actually proving it. And hunch is a large part of the policeman's job, and it actually doesn't take much intelligence to have good hunches, even as a detective. Which is why they're always drunk and why they do drugs and why they're crooked and why they cheat on their wives and all this. Is because you know, they're just humans and they're, you know, whatever. So this guy thanks his Sherlock Holmes because he views himself as Michael Moriarty, and he's like, you did a good job here today, Sherlock. I actually despise myself most of the time, and I'm actually really happy that you stopped me. And this is the reaction of a smart criminal. The dumb criminal screams for 5 hours, takes a bad mugshot that everybody makes fun of later, and like gets like, you know, beaten up in the holding cell because they don't shut the fuck up, and then they spend too much money on a lawyer, and often the cops don't have probable cause. It's honestly the truth. Most of the time the cops don't actually have probable cause, and most criminals just tell the cop what they did, believe it or not. And if you were to actually demand that they show proof, some cops are like, no, I'm not going to waste the time to do that, get out of here. You'd be surprised how often it happens. The cop is like, nope, I'm not going to go fucking spend, like, you know, I'm not going to turn around on the 50 cases that I already have and put them all to sleep and piss off the victims' families while I go chase this one dude for 3 solid weeks and he catch me if he can, and it disappears like Barry Goldwater or whatever it is. And like, and so the cop, you'd be surprised how often this happens. And I think it happened to me too. Like, it did happen to me. I tried to turn in a rapist that I actually did not want free. I actually wanted him off the street because he had hurt women that I liked, and I did turn him in to try to get out of a drug charge, and they laughed in my face and told me have fun in jail, and told me to get the fuck out of their car when I told them where the guy was. They were like, no, he's out of jurisdiction, right? And to me, that's them being lazy. They could easily like reach out to that jurisdiction and stop a goddamn rapist from raping women in that goddamn jurisdiction, but nope, the cops fucking laughed at me, fucking called me a disgrace, and told me to get the fuck out of their cab and enjoy jail. Right? That's literally what they said. They're like, they had just had me sign all this paperwork and shit. They're like, this shit's worthless. And they're like, you aren't held to this anymore. We're not protecting you from shit. And they tore the agreement in half. It was like this long agreement. And they were like, get the fuck out of the car. And I was like, okay, I'll go enjoy jail now. See you guys. And that was the last time I ever dealt with police. You know, I was like, nope. Never deal with police again. They're liars, and they don't do the job that they need to do all the time. They needed to get that rapist off the street. I can't go attack that guy. He'll fucking shoot me. He's sitting up in a hotel room with an AK. I know him. He's sitting up in that room, in that hotel room with not an AK, but some kind of weapon. He's sitting up there with a portable safe. I know because I had to move the safe for him, and in the portable safe is a firearm. I'm not going to fucking turn this guy in for rape directly. I want you to go do it to him like a good police officer, Piggy. You know? But they were like, fuck no, that's out of jurisdiction. We can't do shit with that. Fuck you, get the fuck out of our car. I'll never forget that. That's exactly what they said too. They're like, fuck you for wasting our time, get the fuck out of our car. And I was like, okay, fine, okay. And they ripped up the agreement, and I was like, I'll go enjoy jail now, and I did.
The fake identity.
Not real jail, but definitely, you know.
Mild-mannered John Zorn.
Definitely spent 5 days, well, it was 8 days in city jail, 5 of which I was in a coma.
The biobasher, who was a respected member of the community in Charlotte North.
And so, yeah, and so the smart criminals are like, oh, good job, Pig. Good job, Pig. You got a really bad criminal off the street. I really hate myself. I deeply hate myself and the things that I do to other people. So it's good job, Pig, for getting me off the street. You know, this is how a Moriarty type congratulates his Sherlock, and that's the case here. Usually, it's dudes screaming in the cell about how he didn't do it, but this dude is like, "Thank you, Pig. Good job, Pig. That'll do, Pig." You know. And that's how you know you've got like a Moriarty type that's trying to run like some kind of Sherlock Holmes thing on a whole bunch of robberies and just be one of the smartest criminals in history or whatever. And the Moriartys will thank you for busting them. I've done it several times. I have thanked police and I've thanked a citizen for arresting me because I was like, thank God somebody did it, you know?
Carolina. But for now...
Thank God somebody did it. I was not going to stop myself. No. I was going to continue the hunt for the cat. And if you had not caught me and broke my ribs and tossed me in the paddy wagon, throw me around like the good war criminal that you are or whatever, you know, I wouldn't have learned my lesson, you know. But now I've learned my lesson to not do stupid ass shit like that. It just doesn't lead anywhere good. But I mean, I did. I thanked the guy who citizen arrested me. I thanked the pigs who took me away, threw me in the paddy wagon with the broken ribs. I thanked them all because I'm like, well, these people are good people. They're trying to help us. They're trying to keep society clean. They're not letting... like, how I think of cops now is they're the people who try to keep your grandmother safe. And anything you do to make their job harder it's like a discredit to your grandmother, you know?
His real name, Jeffrey Allen Manchester. Not an awful lot is known about.
That's why I don't fuck with pigs. There was times in my life when I fucked with pigs. I've blown up cop cars. I've actively hunted police. I've actively blown up cop cars in a district fucking parking lot. I've been a punker, anarchist, you know, vandal punk, and I definitely went through a skateboarding vandal blow up cop car phase. And I have definitely kicked some cop car windows in, trying to get to their guns and their loot and stuff. I've kicked in some cop car windows. I've done some nasty things to cop cars, but not to cops, right? Because I just don't really believe in fucking with humans, but their cop cars are open season. You ever blown up several cop... Well, I didn't blow them up. I lit them on fire until they essentially combusted completely. I lit several cop cars on fire until they combusted when I was a child. And by child, I mean child, I was 15. That was a crazy year, you know. I did a lot of crazy things. I must have kicked in 30 car windows that year, and 3 of them were cop cars, you know. I don't care. I never have cared. If it's fun, I'll do it, as long as it doesn't harm anybody. And I don't really think that a pig's cop car, when there's no one in it, I don't consider that. That's open season. That's fair game. That's, you know, that if the pig's not sitting in it, the cop car is open game. We've everybody I know almost has defaced cop cars. I've even got sisters of the crew to do it. We love defacing cop cars. Fuck cops. Now, I feel this way because I'm literally 15 years old mentally. I'm 40 some odd physically, but I'm 15 years old mentally. My message is terrible. I don't really believe it. I just actually subscribe to it. This is the problem. I don't believe the things that I'm saying here, but I do subscribe to it, which is the horrible part. And I feel like a shitbird for doing so. And I'm climbing the ropes of shit when I do so. But I don't care, you know. And the ropes are slippery with shit, you know. And I'm gonna fall. I'm gonna fall when I attack cops like this. But I don't care. This was the life that I lived. I'm not proud of this. I'm just saying that it was the case. You know, it is the truth.
An ex-wife and 3 children.
A couple of times I was like, oh my God, I bet I could sell a shotgun to one of my friends for $500 cash right now. Do you know how much methamphetamine that will buy? I do. It would buy me an ounce. You know, $500 to me was an ounce. To you, it's probably 5 grams. To me, it's an ounce, 28 grams, right? So, yeah, so I thought all the time about how I never did it. I mean, I tried to do it, but I didn't succeed and stuff. But I was like, oh my God, if I could get that shotgun out of that pig's car somehow, that's $500 cash on the street, you know, and I used to think about that a lot.
Children living in the
but you know, but then you got to worry about who you're selling the shotgun to and what they use it for, and all this other stuff. And this is another reason why I don't do crime and haven't done any real organized crime beyond being a drug dealer and a credit card thief in the last like 30 years, because I don't really believe in the risk. The risk that you have to take to do it successfully is self-defeating. The amount it costs you in time and effort and thinking and geniusness and all, or not geniuses, but just coming up with genius ideas to screw people is just not worth it. It's just another job that pays well, but it's just another job. At that point, it becomes like a job.
Valeria, although the only family member who ever agreed to speak to the press was his mother. We do know that
wow, so his family also backed him. They all probably thought he was a good guy when he told them, I've never harmed a living thing. I've never struck anybody in... Well, he definitely pistol whipped somebody who was trying to kill him, I think. But I mean, like, that's it. That's probably what he told his parents. He's like, I've never harmed a living thing. I do not believe in violence. I never harmed another living thing. And if I did harm somebody, it's because they came after me, And his family probably didn't know until he got caught, too. They probably had no idea who he was.
He once spent time during his young
I think all the time that these people are working with other criminals, and that we only know sometimes like 1/3 or 1/4 or 1/2 of a story. I'm convinced that most criminals work in crews of 1 to 4 people, and you never ever hear, this guy couldn't have done this so successfully if he didn't have a fence, if he didn't have criminal conspirators, if he didn't have somebody to help him with certain things like identity. This guy had backing in the criminal community, but none of them probably knew what he was doing or where. But I mean, this guy had like backing in criminal communities. That to me is too much risk. At that point, you're essentially just one call away from being sunk by somebody that you can't predict. You can't tell them what to do.
He is actually working in the branch.
And so witnesses are a big no-no. And I think he definitely worked without witnesses for a long time. But nope, to rob like $200,000 from McDonald's and like during the 80s and the 90s, and then to move that money, there was other people that were in on it. And so I suspect that we're only getting at least half, if not quarter, of the story too. And he didn't roll on anybody at all. And we got to wonder who his partners were. This is the cops' worst nightmare. Is they always wonder who else is complicit, right? And so do I. The worst nightmare is this guy alone? I don't think so. He couldn't have been alone. He couldn't have moved $240,000 in the roaring 90s during the bank robber craze, when they were all talking about it on the television shows and the movies, and all the movies were about bank robberies and stuff like Heat, right? There's just no way he did this alone. Not totally, no. He would have had lovers. He would have had friends. He would have had fences. He would have had connections. He would have had an identity person that sold him fake identities, or he made them himself or something. I'm not sure what. But I guarantee he boiled down all of the humans out of it as much as he possibly could. But I guarantee there was at least 5 or 10 people still involved in this. And I wonder sometimes if they weren't full-blown involved in it, like partner status, and working just the same exact way that he was. And sometimes you got to wonder who the culprits are. Is it just him? I've never known a man to just be a man. Do you ever know a man to just be a man? I guess I'm doing it right now, but I won't do it forever. When is a man just a man? It's almost never like that. It's like there's some lover, there's some family, there's some lie, there's some Skyler fucking, what was Breaking Bad, what was his name, Heisenberg, there's always some Skylar White that's complicit. There's always some son that's complicit. There's always some aunt or husband or stepsisters or stepwife or step-husband or something like that. That's that just is totally aware of what you're doing and is complicit. I've never known a man to be an island. I've never seen or witnessed or ever seen a man actually manage to do it. I think these bank robbers have to have at least a crew of 3 people, something like that, if they want to operate, because moving the money is pretty much impossible. It just lights up the feds. If you try to blow $240,000, they will come knocking. They will blow. If you blow $240,000 even in like 5 years, they will come knocking and be like, where'd you get the money from? And what do you say when they do? They will be like, we see that you've been spending a lot of goddamn money. They always know. They know. They track the serials and they see, and it ends up in records and stuff when you buy a car or a house or pay for rent or something like that. And they see that you have all this income that you don't know where it came from. And that's the other problem. So how do you convince other people to keep you secret without giving them at least half of it or something like that? And so another thing that I fear with these fucking criminals all the time is that they're also paying some other way worse, more clever, got caught less criminal, and so I guarantee you some other criminal was probably leaning on this guy to keep his anonymity and keep him out of jail, and so probably half of his proceeds were probably going to some blackmailer too, because he has to tell somebody. And so eventually the blackmailer probably just ends up being like the guy who provides him his fake identities and takes a cut every time he does something and moves some money or fences something or buys something, right? But I guarantee this guy has somebody like that. He is not alone, and that's the problem. That person is the real criminal. They're at least a quarter, if not half, if not a third, if not the entirety of the problem. That other person is the real criminal. And I do not believe this person to be working alone.
McDonald's later on.
I've never seen a criminal work alone. It's every criminal's dream. You can't. It just doesn't work like that. Sooner or later, you've got to make a point of contact when you sell something or you buy something or you steal something. You've got to make contacts when you do a crime. You're going to leave witness, and a truly good, Moriarty criminal will be loath to do that. They will not be willing to do it. They will just not. They will not be willing to expose themselves in such a manner. And so then often the true sign of a really, truly talented criminal is they're willing to wait between 1, 3, 5, 7, 10, 20 years sometimes. Like my favorite unsolved mysteries was where I got my bank robbery idea from, which was some dude who lived just like, I think it was like 5 blocks from a bank. So he burrows a tunnel while he goes to work all his life. And he never tells his family what he's doing down there. They think he's just working in the basement or something. And they don't care. He's your average Walter White. That he's so boring that they can't remember that he's alive anymore. But what he's actually doing is drilling a long 36-foot, or whatever it was like a 36-foot tunnel from his basement straight under the bank vault. And he was running seismic sensors, and he was using his money that he worked at his job at all of his life to pay for the construction, the rotor-rooter stuff, the rototiller stuff, all the stuff that he was doing. And then sure enough, when he reached his 43, I think he reached like 46 or something like that, he retired from his job, and that night he disappeared on his family. He had raised his children well. He had sent them all to college. They all had jobs and kids themselves. His wife was taken care of. He had left her a big nest egg and stuff. He had left her a big investment in their bank account and all this. And they didn't find out what he did for like another, I think, 13 years or something. They finally did trace it, and they finally found, They figured out what he did the moment that he robbed the place, because they figured out that the tunnel was there. But the Sly Fox, right? He works at a crappy cubicle job all of his life, and he uses any spare money that he makes beyond paying for his family to dig the hole. And maybe his family knew. We don't know. Maybe his family knew, but the Unsolved Mysteries was of the opinion that I went back and I saw that they had got closure on the case, but I saw that case when I was like 22, and it stuck out in my mind because I was like, oh man, he got away and they never did catch him, and it was a brilliant idea. It was like the Andy Dufresne Shawshank Redemption method, where you just dig your way out of your out of your problem with a single like shovel of a spoon, one shovel a minute, all day, every day for the next 20 years, and eventually you dig your hole out of the prison. It does happen. Eventually you get there, and I'm much more of a criminal like that, which is too slow and methodical for good, flashy crime. but I am not afraid of big scores either. Like when I think of robberies, I think of robbing, like there was a scene in Heat that I'll never forget where they first introduced the idea to you that it's a big stick-up crew that's robbing banks, and it's actually a very, very organized set of individuals that are all jail savvy and are all actually like really not inclined to go back and won't lie or cheat on each other or steal or anything like that. They've got an organization, they can leave at any moment, but nobody leaves because they always successfully rob people and they don't have to work. They show up and they commit a crime every 2 years and 3/4 of a year or something like that in Heat, and then they just like live their expensive shishi yaya lives up in the hills with their husbands and their wives or their apartments or whatever, and they don't work. They just plan robberies for 2 or 3 years, and then they show up for 3 hours of work one night every 2 or 3 years, and then they sit there and they just live the life fantastic, and they have all the drugs and all the food and all the liquor and all the wine and all the expensive bottles and all the money and cars in the world, and they dress fancy like movie stars do, and they've got like expensive professional lives and loving spouses and families and stuff who all have no idea what they're doing, no idea at all think that and they live these lives where they go to work every day, but instead of actually going to work every day, they just show up at some bar or some cigar bar and they drink with their friends and they plan robberies. They don't show up at a fucking office. They don't pay for an office. Are you really going to pay for an office when you're doing bank robberies? No, that's a paper trail. So no, they show up at like cigar bars and shit with their expensive money that they get, and they rob bearer bonds from people like careless businessmen who leave bearer bonds in safes and places like storage containers out in the front of their businesses and stuff like that. They don't go to banks, they don't go to people, they don't stick guns in people's faces. They drill holes through walls to get to safes that are in careless businessmen's like businesses, And I thought, boy, I could derive a lot of satisfaction out of that. I feel like so many people charge too much money for everything that they do just to run a business. Everything's so expensive that I actually don't mind robbing businessmen. I think it's actually you could derive a lot of satisfaction from it. I think they're a victim that can actually recover too. If they're good enough at their job, I think they can probably recover from a really bad robbery if they're a good businessman. So in terms of victims, businessmen aren't that bad either. They don't tend to be violent. They don't tend to want reprisal unless they hire somebody. They don't, they can't hire somebody and they can't sick the FBI on you. But businessmen are a good target as opposed to bank people who are strapped up, And so I always thought of doing a career like that, but then sure enough, you've got to buy the dynamite, or you've got to earn a safe cracker in your crew. You've got to figure out how to crack safes. You've got to drill holes deep at night so quietly that they can't detect that you're there. Oftentimes when there's a safe, they have a seismic detector, so explosives and drills don't work. There's all these other things about it, And I don't know how I know all this. I just really thought that I might carry a life of like endless serfdom with nothing but the torture of being condemned to being a digital serf all my life. So I thought crime might be a good way to dig myself out of that. But every single time I step to the drawing board, I take a look at it and I'm like, nope, the risk is unacceptable. The proof is unacceptable. The witness is unacceptable. The court case is unacceptable. The time in the jail is unacceptable. The amount of money that you get is unacceptable. Crime just does not pay. It does not pay. And I'm here to tell you, like, after putting it up, I literally like donned my hat and I took the ring and I made a promise to God and my family and my girlfriend and everybody the fuck else that I just would never commit any more crime ever again. I just wasn't ever going to break the law ever again. I had to swear on the ring, and everybody else, I carry this ring like an oath, and it represents my sobriety and my promise to never break the law again, because the risk is just not worth the reward. It doesn't matter how much money you could be making. You could be making Heisenberg money. It is not worth your fucking valuable beauty sleep. It's just not worth it. It never is. I learned it the hard way. I got tortured so much, so often, that I understood finally that it's just not worth the amount of pain and sorrow that the other humans will put you through if you do it. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it.
Reservist with another
It doesn't matter if you're successful. You can make $50 million a year being a successful thief. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's never worth it. You lose your beauty sleep. You can't ever relax. You can't ever go home and sleep at night. That's a lesson that I learned from Batman the Animated Series, right? At the end of If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Rich? Which is, If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Rich? Is like season 3, episode 5 or something like that. I think If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Rich? Right? And at the end of it, this is a Batman episode. Batman, the Animated Series, right? And I think this is season 3, but I might be wrong. It was If You're So Smart is the 40th episode of Batman the Animated Series, right? And at the end of it, the Riddler The Riddler traps Batman in a maze, and I forget what I'm trying to get after. There it is. At the end of the reason that I quit, I was watching Batman the Animated Series about 7 years ago, and I had forgotten this. I knew it since I was a child, but it took a cartoon to remind me. And it's such a good episode. It's November 18th, 1992. It was probably the 3rd season or something like that. I'm not sure what season, but very, very good episode. And at the end of it, Batman laments, right? Bruce, however, is strangely satisfied after Wayne Enterprises acquires Compatron, bringing a surge of much-needed jobs to the city. Dick, being, Robin, is still bitter that Mockridge, whose greed and dishonesty started the whole battle with the Riddler in the first place, made millions out of the buyout and ultimately got away scot-free, right? Bruce, however, is strangely satisfied, noting that neither they nor the authorities have had any success tracking the Riddler down for months. And the Riddler is smart. The Riddler's a genius. He's not going to get caught, right? He does get caught, but only because, he wants to. He wonders how well Mockridge will be able to sleep with his enemies still at large. Indeed, Mockridge shivers in terror as he makes his way to bed. They show it in the episode. He locks 5 separate deadbolts on his door, then tiptoes to his bedroom while searching his apartment and carrying a shotgun. And Batman asks one of the most important riddles that mankind has ever pondered. Batman is then heard quoting, the riddle that how much is a good night's sleep worth? Right? And that's why crime doesn't pay. You lose your sleep. You cannot ever relax. The paranoia is not worth the $20 million. Or I could easily break the financial yoke that is torturing my family. I could easily go break it. I could come up with so many. I don't have to come up with them. I've successfully used them before to make tens of thousands of dollars. I don't need to come up with them. I've used them before. They work. They work. But I don't want to, particularly because I sleep well now. I sleep so well now. I sleep sometimes 10, 14 hours or something. It wasn't always like that. It was like maybe 3 hours, get up maybe 3-4 hours if I'm lucky, pound a Monster or pound a Bang energy drink or something and go at it for another 20 hours, right? And pass out fucking of exhaustion at the end of it. That's what I'm doing right now today. It's what I've always done. And so now, I've come to understand that the solution wasn't that the system sucked dick and threw me around in paddy wagons with broken ribs until I cried uncle. It wasn't that they threatened me with 10 years of jail for non-felony charges and terrorized my family and terrorized me and caused me to be in the madhouse for 2 years. It's not any of this other stuff. It's this old mankind. It's a riddle as old as the ages. How much is a good night's sleep worth? And this is why you shouldn't ever rob banks or be a criminal or be like Skycat or anything like that. I sleep like a fucking baby now because I paid every last goddamn debt. We pay our debts on time. I paid my debts on time. Every time I was given a chance to, I did. I threw my arms up in the air, took the cuffs, and was like, I'm sorry. I have done wrong. I want to repent. And this is how I'm able to sleep with my ex-girlfriend. This is how I'm able to still have a family. This is how I still have an inner circle, even though we don't talk. This is how I have a life still. Otherwise, I would be Andy Dufresne from Shawshank Redemption, and I'd be gone out the sewer. I'd be gone out the sewer tunnel after I stole $20 million from Mr. Beast or something. So.
reports.
Yeah, so like, I'm the slow burn. One of my favorite, my life's motto almost is an old saying by a Chinese fisherman named Lu Shang, which is, if you wait by the side of the river long enough, the corpse of your enemy will float by. And that's how I deal with all of my problems. Essentially, I don't believe in procrastination. I believe in solving problems the minute that you can't solve them. But honestly, I will put them off until I can solve them. I will put them off until I can reach a solution. And to me, the whole problem of the system, I reached the solution, which was that, the conclusion that I will die first before I ever break the law again, because I will never enter this system again. And I know why, because when I'm in the system, I can't get a good night's sleep. I hate them. I want to kill them. I want to blow up the Lindsay Flanagan courthouse building in Denver. And I don't mean that. It's a joke. But I mean, like I did at the time for how bad they tortured me. I hated them so bad. That's not commensurate to most crimes. Most criminals don't want to blow up the courthouse afterwards. I do, because they trample my goddamn civil rights. And I view the courthouse as worthless now. Essentially, like it should be blown down and burned to the fucking to ashes. And then I piss on the fucking ashes. And we build a new courthouse that isn't with a new system that isn't tainted by these assholes who tortured me for 10 years, And so, yeah, how much is a good night's sleep worth? And so I can talk out of my ass on how to successfully rob a bank all day long. It doesn't matter. In the end, I'm going to tell you there's no crime that is worth a good night's sleep. There is no crime in history that's worth a good night's sleep. There just isn't. There's nothing in history that is worth losing a good night's sleep over. It's just not worth it. I'd rather be a pauper eating dust in a third world country than try to steal my way out of poverty. Now, I didn't used to be like that, but I am now. I will die first, and the reason is why. The reason why is not because a crime is bad or that I care about people's feelings when I rob them or something like that. It's not like that. I'm a hard motherfucker like that. I actually am, kind of. It sucks, but I've always been. It's more that I can't get a good night's sleep if I'm in the system, so there's no crime, even jaywalking, that's worth me ever entering the system ever again. I'll fucking die first. And I said this I didn't finish the thought, which is that what's a good night's sleep worth, right? I should have said it to the judge. I might have gotten out of prison, or sorry, I call it prison, but it's actually 2 years of court dates over and over and over again. 37 court dates, 37 in all. I've got the file. I've showed it on stream before. And so I watched the Casual Criminalist because I believe in learning about these people and the things that they do, but I don't believe in ever doing any of the things that they do anymore. I really don't. I would rather die first than violate the law, and I suggest you do the same. Violating the law is not the same as it was in, say, 2001 even. It's now like a 1984 crooked deep state fucking political liberty game that plays with your money and your record and your history and your freedom, and there's no crime that is worth the American system anymore. I can't think of one. There's no crime that I can think of that is worth the travesty that our system has become, and the hanging judges and the problems and the systemic problems and the slow trials and all that stuff. It's all bad, all of it. So I just don't go around that thing. I don't do that anymore. It's bad, so I don't go around it. I put wood. Oh, there we go. Say we're making a lot of wood here. My neck hurts. I've got to sit up. Oh, my neck is out of kink because I've been sitting wrong. So let's listen to the Casual Criminalist more. This guy inspires me, the roof man, because he's my kind of criminal. He sits there and he bores in and he doesn't leave a chance. Right? He enters through the hole. He armed robbed, which I didn't like. I think he could have easily left that part out of it. But he armed robs and then leaves out the hole again. And they don't know what he's doing. And they're locked in the freezer. And honestly, he did get away with it 60 times or something like that. That's proof that you've got a system that works. If you got away with robbing goddamn McDonald's 60 times or something, you've built a system that works. I heard another time about another guy who robbed 500 some odd banks in his lifetime. The most bank robberies. Who has the most bank robberies, right? The most bank robberies in America. Right. The most bank robberies in 20 guys at a higher rate of. Oh wow! Look, Colorado is a bank robbery state. It's kind of funny than any other state. Look, and it's funny that Colorado is a bank robbery state, probably because the banks don't really have good security in Colorado. In 2020, the Anchorage metropolitan area in Alaska had the highest robbery rate in the United States, with 185 robberies per 100,000 people. So in Anchorage, they'll just rob the bank to stay there. The San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley, California metro area was second with 178.5 robberies per 100,000 people. But Denver, we rob banks in Denver. I know because I looked into it for a long time. But which criminal has the most? They want to do a Hollywood movie about him, but they don't want to glorify him. As according to CBS Colorado, as of February 2024. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm trying to. There we go. What is the most? I'm sorry. Bank crimes. The biggest heist and bank robbers. List of bank robbers and robberies. Right. So. I forget the name of this guy. Was it Perth Mint Swindle? From the Perth Mint. Wow. The Perth Mint Swindle. Wow. Famous robberies, huh? Which... The Friday Night Bank Robber, here it is. This Carl Gugasian. Gugasian is considered by some to be the most successful serial bank robber in U.S. history. Over a 30-year period, he robbed more than 50 banks and stole over $2 million. He served a 17-year sentence for armed robbery. They always pull out a gun eventually. It's stupid. He escaped 3 times. $879,357. John Dillinger and fucking Jesse James and stuff. Yeah, this guy, I thought it was 500 banks, but it's 50. It's 50 banks, but that's still a lot. This guy robbed 60 McDonald's. This guy's almost as famous, I think.
He was downgraded to a reservist after getting stripped of his combat status for reasons that military officials would never reveal. This might explain why he became disillusioned and embittered over his military career.
Yep. If you dishonorably discharge people that don't deserve it, you'll have a burning hatred out of that person for the rest of their natural lives. It happened to a friend of mine. He hated them so much. I wouldn't be surprised if he actively tried to fight them. You know, it screwed him so bad. He had a good Navy tradition in his family too, going back 5 generations. They had all served and they were all war heroes. And when they denied him for drinking with his buddies, it ruined his life. He was smoking crack by the end of it.
And decided to step back.
He was the most handsome, most talented, most successful boy in our school. Better than me, you know. I love my friend B. I consider him a very good friend. Haven't seen him in 10 years, but I love my friend B. Shout out to B, because he went through a lot, and by the end of it, he was smoking crack and shit. I felt so bad for him.
Back into McDonald's, albeit
you wreck somebody's life, it should be taken into the equation how much you're actually ruining their lives. Some people, like him, he never should have had a dishonorable discharge for drinking underage. His platoon pressured him to do that, and when they discharged him for it, it broke 5 generations of family history, and his parents didn't ever want to talk to him again. You know, that shit sucks.
Not through the front door. Here's the thing, though. The police had concrete evidence that Jeffrey had pulled off the 2 McDonald's robberies on...
I still think of his story as the most tragic story I've ever heard, because I saw the damage My story isn't shit compared to his. I saw the damage firsthand. I saw what it did to him. I saw the wreck of a human being that was left afterwards. From he went from it was like 4th of July. He was like that movie 4th of July. He was like the #1 homecoming king. He was like the hottest dude in the school. All the girls creamed their panties for him. He was rich. He was successful. His family were steeped in naval tradition and all this, and they were very, very, very good people. And none of them had ever broken a law or done anything like that, and he got kicked out for drinking underage. And I'll never forget it. I never forget the wreck of a human being that was left afterwards. It was a lesson to me that maybe slapping somebody on the hand might be good, but taking their livelihood away, I'm not so sure about that.
On that day in May 2000.
I don't know.
And during interrogation, he was happy to confess to these 2 crimes. But Jeffrey claims that he hadn't committed any of the other 60 crimes that had taken place over the previous years. Yeah, why would you? Yeah. They're like, we caught you, Ruth, but he's like, you caught me for the crimes that you caught me. No other crimes. I've committed no other crimes. Why would you be insane to be like, yeah, you caught me, it's been years, 60 robberies.
60 robberies, yep.
You just have that moment of, oh God, no, they only knew about these 2. They could only prove these 2. And that's why you always get a lawyer.
You always get a lawyer and you don't talk. One word, lawyer.
One day you're putting them away, next day you're setting them free.
Lawyer.
One day you're putting them away, next day you're setting them free.
Lawyer. Instead, he reckons.
Don't ever talk to the cops. It doesn't matter. They don't want you to talk to them, honestly. They do if they're detectives, but then their job depends on it. But they don't really want you to talk. They don't want you to incriminate themselves. They want you to deal with the court.
Inspired by the stories in the press relating to Ruthman, and had decided to carry out copycat robberies in honour of his hero. The police weren't remotely convinced all the crimes had been carried out in an almost identical manner. Although Ruthman wore a mask, witnesses often painted a very similar picture of a man with a strong athletic build and a pronounced Adam's apple, attributes which matched those of Jeffrey Manchester. But that is not close to proof. And it's worth pointing out that following Jeffrey's prison sentence, the regular rooftop robberies mysteriously dried up. Again, not enough to count as...
Another reason I can never do armed robbery is I stand out in a crowd. I'm the biggest dude in the room. If somebody meets me, they don't ever forget what I look like. I'm very aware of this, and I don't, I stand out. I just don't have that kind of anonymity to stand in a crowd and like pretend that I wasn't the guy who robbed you. If I were to have to do a lineup, I've already lost my career because, trust me, they're going to be like, that guy. I stand out. I do. I don't know why, but I do. I stand out. I really stand out. It's annoying to me.
There's proof. And yet it appears that the police couldn't ever pin any of the previous robberies.
Probably because I'm 6'4". My father was 6'7".
Jeffrey Manchester, and nobody was ever charged with them. The police could only charge Jeffrey with armed robbery and kidnapping for those 2 McDonald's heists that unfolded on the same day. But he certainly got clobbered with a pretty hefty punishment for those 2 robberies in late 2000. Jeffrey
30 years.
Was sentenced to 45
years.
Prison.
They knew what he did. They just couldn't prove it.
What? I'm only outraged at this because this morning I recorded an episode about
Jared, who only got like 3 years or something like that.
Blade Jared Fogle,
yeah,
the Subway dude who ended up being a
pederast.
There's a word that you can't use on YouTube because it will get you demonetized, apparently. Look, it's a P word. And he went to, there was him, he got like 15 years or something. And then one of his mates, who was even worse, got like 30 years. This dude just did armed robbery twice. I mean, yes, armed robbery is bad. But what the extent of the crimes in that previous episode disgusted me. This is like, okay, armed robbery didn't... Oh, I don't understand American prison sentences.
No.
What's going on?
We don't either.
We're nuts.
You'd have thought they'd at least shaved off a few years for his good manners. I mean, I guess one thing is they're like, well, we kind of know you did the other 60 crimes, so we're just going to absolutely hammer you for the 2 that you did do, like maximum sentence style of stuff. But isn't that a bit unfair?
He is so polite and courteous and thoughtful.
There was, however, one minor problem. There wasn't a prison in the land secure enough to hold roofmen. After being moved around various different prisons in North Carolina, Jeffrey eventually settled down in Brown Creek Correctional Institution in Polkton, a prison from which nobody had ever escaped since it had opened for business 7 years earlier. For the first 5 years of his sentence, Jeffrey appeared to behave like a model prisoner and picked up a nice little job in the metal plant. See, I don't get that guy a job in the metal plant. He's going to do something with that metal. But he had more than likely been plotting his escape since day one. He was patient enough to play the long game. Under the guise of being a model prisoner, Jeffrey had quietly fallen back on his old expertise of studying patterns in routine and human behavior to exploit the vulnerable cracks in the system. Yeah, dude. If you were in prison forever, right, and all you had to do...
All you have to do is dream up a way to get out.
You'd just be like, that's interesting. Look at that pattern. And you had years and years just to think about escaping. That's a lot of brain power going into one singular task. If McDonald's employees think that their working days can feel a bit repetitive, they should try spending a few years in prison, in which both prisoners and officers alike are almost mindlessly following an entirely predictable cycle of monotonous events doomed to repeat the same actions over and over again, almost as if they were trapped in a perpetual time loop. Nice. Also, I feel, you know how I mentioned McDonald's won't mess up that system even if they do occasionally get robbed because it's so profitable for them? Prisons need to interrupt their things because the consequences are higher. Jeffrey observed the routines of the prisoners and the guards and the changing of shifts, but more importantly, he observed the routines of the delivery trucks. And while he was compiling his mental notes on the deliveries and procedures of the delivery trucks, he got busy in the metal plant putting together a plywood platform which he sprayed painted black. At some point, he managed to attach this black plywood platform to the undercarriage of a delivery truck without anybody noticing. But he still had to wait for the perfect moment to put the final phase of his plan into action. On June the 15th, 2004, dark clouds gathered over Brown Creek Correctional Institution and provided Jeffrey with the opportunity that he had been anticipating. After finishing up work at the metal plant, he seized the calculated moment to slip out of line undetected and made his way to the delivery truck, which was just getting ready to leave the building. Jeffrey slid under the truck, attached a small piece of black cardboard to the back end of the chassis for a little extra privacy.
Yep.
And
he had room for privacy because he had so much time to set it up. The truck would just sit in there. And he's like, well, I can just attach a carriage to the truck and I can just lie in the carriage.
He clung tightly to the pre-prepared black plywood. He had kind of created a primitive optical illusion here, which was helped by the miserable weather conditions. Anybody taking a quick check underneath the truck would have just stared into a fuzzy black void and given it no further consideration. After spending 2 years of his life making dramatic surprise entrances from above, Roofman had now made a dramatic exit from below as the delivery truck trundled away from Brown Creek Correctional Institution. I do love a good prison break story, especially when it's a guy who's like this, who's a bit harmless. Maybe this guy was going to need a new nickname. But Jeffrey had other things to worry about for now. For starters, the delivery truck didn't actually go very far until it parked up at a nearby administrative building, potentially leaving Roofman with a long journey ahead on the road to freedom. A little later on that year, a new face popped up in a neighborhood in Charlotte, North Carolina. His name was John Zorn, and this quietly charming and generous guy quickly turned into quite a likable and popular figure.
It is 7:30. I have been at this for, let's see, I was at, I think I was at 5 before, now I'm at 8, so I've got 4 more hours. I think this is a good time to pause and eat dinner, and then I will have some wine. But first, we'll get going here. Yeah, good.
Crossroads Presbyterian Church and attended Bible class every Wednesday. He dressed up as both Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny for Sunday school Christmas party, handing out expensive new toys to the poor, unfortunate children who have to spend half their weekend putting up with dreary Sunday school Yeah, I once went to church with my grandparents. More than once. Like they were
I'll be right back. I'm going to get something to eat. Maybe I can get away. These guys are out today. Nope, too late. Nice, this is a JB hit marker, and it's for Rannis. I'm just going to eject and... Yeah, that's fine. I'm just going to eject and leave. I didn't even see him target me. How did he target? I mean, I didn't even see him target me. Whatever. I have steak, potato, vegetables, and wine. Maybe a nice simple dinner. Maybe some ketchup. I want that and I want this. Ketchup and Tabasco for the plain meats and veggies. And I will watch this criminal list. You know, I guess I can, buy another ship and go out. I'm not going to do that right now.
So I don't. During a singles lunch held by the church, the largely unassuming John Zorn hooked up with a new partner, a mother of three by the name of Lee Wainscott. Within the space of just a few months, John was showering Lucky Lee with diamond earrings, giving... They were just...
corner. He met somebody.
To hang about, he waited until the coast was clear and proceeded to hitchhike the next leg of his journey. Isn't he wearing, prisoner clothes? I want to say black and white stripes, I'm pretty sure it's just bright orange, right? There was speculation that he might attempt to travel back and see his family in Sacramento County, California, but his mother told the press that she wasn't buying into that, explaining that she didn't believe Jeffrey would put his family in such an awkward position. She also claimed that whilst Jeffrey had expressed some remorse and even embarrassment over his rooftop robberies, she had never been given an adequate explanation as to why he had done them. She was certainly right about Jeffrey's travel plans. He had no intention of making it back to Sacramento County. He only made it as far as Charlotte, North Carolina before taking up residence in a local branch of Toys R Us. Quite incredibly, he was in a cubbyhole behind a bike display every evening and patiently waited until the shop had closed before getting out on the shop floor to stretch his legs a bit and make himself at home. But this was obviously a stopgap measure. Jeffrey harboured more ambitious plans to upgrade to a plusher pad. And he really began living the dream when, from his modest hiding spot behind the bike racks, he managed to burrow his way next door into an abandoned former branch of Circuit City. Now Jeffrey had...
I can't imagine this. You're living in the Toys R Us, and if the kids walk by, you have to be quiet. It's insane.
The best of both worlds. He no longer had to hide motionless for hours while waiting for closing time in a tiny cubbyhole. He could relax in comfort in a fancy new private spot under a stairwell of the empty Circuit City where nobody ever ventured. Then in the evenings after Toys R Us had closed, he could sneak back into the toy store and largely just piss about all night like the world's biggest overgrown kid.
Yep, that's how my life was for 5 years. I lived in a burnt out restaurant or on my friend's couch. Or in a tent. And I had free reign in that burnt out restaurant. I came in every night at 11:15. I would leave at 5:45 in the morning, something like that. Maybe earlier, 4:40, more like 4:45 most days. Or I would stay there all day. Then it was hot. There was no air conditioning. It was freezing in the winter and hot in the summer. And it was, it sucked. It was unpleasant. And there was no shower or anything like that or water. And if I had power, I had to run it. Or use batteries and steal the internet and all this stuff. And I've lived like what he's talking about. I've lived like that in a tiny space like that. The room I lived in was a closet. I lived in a closet for 5 years.
It's kind of amazing. He would keep himself fit by going for a midnight bike ride around the aisles of the store. If he was feeling in a really
no security
mood,
cameras,
he would take some of the radio-controlled cars up for a little spin on the roof. And another handy benefit was that Toys R Us came with its entirely free all-you-can-eat buffet, albeit mostly in the form of kids' snacks and baby food. What is he up to? Why stay here for so long?
He's fine. You'll like him.
You might be wondering why this branch of Toys R Us didn't have an effective security camera system in place. Anyone who bothered to check the previous night's footage would have surely raised some kind of alarm when they saw a grown man taking radio-controlled cars up to the roof, gorging himself silly on baby food, and bouncing around the aisles on a space hopper. Well, this is so absurd. Well, the store apparently did have an effective security camera system, but Jeffrey had taken control of it. After sneaking into the manager's office and studying the manual for the security cameras at great length, he probably knew more about how they worked than anybody else in the store and was able to manipulate the system so it failed to record any of his late night.
Yep, when you need something, you do it. When I was on the streets, I had to do all kinds of crazy things that I never thought I could have done.
Antics. What a legend. Oh, this is so much better than the Jared episode. I mean, that sounds bad because it was a really good episode. It was really well written. I just mean it's less, isn't it? It's just less. It's just less everything. It's just light. An hour or two before the store was due to open again the next morning, Jeffrey would retreat through the secret passageway behind the bike rack back to his bizarre new man cave in Circuit City. And he really wanted to go to town with the decoration of his new lodgings under the stairwell. He painted the walls bright colours, put up posters, set up action figures, and mounted a toy basketball hoop. During these daytime hours, he would often...
Yeah, like prison, right? Yep, it's exactly like a prison cell. That's how I felt, too, when I lived in that tiny cell. I was like, well... It seems like they want me in prison, and if they can't get me in prison, they'll put me in a tiny room like this, where I have to hide from them.
While away time watching superhero movies on a DVD player, both of which obviously came courtesy of Toys R Us, although I'm not entirely sure where he sourced the TV set. Spider-Man was obviously a clear influence on Roofman's career path, and it's no surprise that Spider-Man 2 was a particular favourite that was regularly on the top of his viewing pile. It does all sound a bit like the story of a man who never grew up, or perhaps a man who was making up for a lost childhood. But there was a sensible side to the living arrangements too. Jeffrey had ensured that he installed a stolen smoke detector in his new home under the stairwell, and it was also reported that he'd managed to pipe in water from Toys R Us so that he wasn't just rolling around in his own man filth.
How?
Why, Jeffrey? At some point, you got to move out, man. You got to go and, like, I don't know, what do escaped criminals do? Get a new face somehow?
He's happy here. It's good for him.
And there was a far more serious ulterior motive for his choice of location. From his secret lair in Circuit City, Jeffrey was planning his next big robbery at Toys R Us. The problem with avoiding the busy shop floor in the daytime hours and avoiding any interaction with the workforce is that he was never going to get into the safe this way. At the end of each day, all the takings were securely locked in a safe hidden around the back of the store, but Jeffrey knew that the manager was the only one with the key to...
So he initially wanted to hit this place, which is why he lived there for as long as he did. But you don't shit where you eat if you're a criminal. You don't ever rob anybody in your same neighborhood. You don't take any money from them. You don't do anything to people in your own neighborhood. You don't shit where you eat. That's the number one rule of criminality. Don't shit where you eat, my friend.
Get inside. So, Jeffrey's next big master plan was to mount another carefully orchestrated early morning raid on the store when the manager was on the scene and get him to open up the safe and hand over the cash. Yet again, Ruthman got busy on studying the crushingly repetitive routines of a corporate corporation, but it was easier than usual this time. He set up a stolen baby monitor in his man cave so that he could sit back and observe the daily schedules of his intended targets with the comfort of his den whilst playing with his action figures and happily munching away on baby food. And there was another big difference. Instead of just observing the patterns from an aloof position, this time Ruthman was able to directly influence the course of events. During his late-night visits next door, he started mucking about with the staff rotas so that the schedules fitted in better with his plans, behaving like the almost literal gremlin in the works of an innocent toy store. Ruthman wasn't just identifying and exploiting the weakest spots in the system, he was now treating the occasionally confused employees like puppets on strings and making them dance to his tune. It was shortly after the Ruthman began hatching his latest plot that he assumed the identity of John Zorn and began leading the new double life down in the local church community. In typically childlike Ruthman style, he had chosen the name John Zorn because it sounded a bit like Max Zorin, the villain from the 1985 Bond film A View to Kill, and Jeffrey thought it sounded...
Agent Michael Scarn, so he was like, oh, Agent Michael Scarn. Mike Zorin. Michael Scarn. I always wondered where they got that name from. So one of the things about the directors of the showrunners of television shows and movies is they have to have cultural references to use all the time. And I never knew what Agent Michael Scarn was actually from, but it's from this, I think.
Does sound cool. I'm guessing it was either that or John Octopussy.
So you are the mysterious Octopussy.
Over the course of several months, Ruthman was living something approaching to a normal life with his relationship and church activities, yet he still sneaked off back to his man cave in Circuit City after it.
Yep, that's how I did it. When I was on the streets, they didn't know I was home. They knew I was homeless, but they didn't know that I had a spot and that I had you could call it a home, but it wasn't like at any point they could knock it down, and they did. I came home one day, and they had knocked down my house and everything I owned. I forgot about this, but yeah, everything that I had in there was like 3 bags worth of stuff and a bed and a laptop. And I saw that laptop with the monitor. And I came home one day, and there was a giant hole where the burnt out restaurant used to be. And I was like, oh, it's an end of an era. And oh, God.
Had enough of being normal for one day. The church pastor, Ron Smith, later remarked,
and so I would like come out at 5:45 in the morning, and I would work or deal drugs or do something. And then I would come home to the coffee shop around 7:15 in the evening, somewhere around there, 6:30, 7:15. And I would hang out there for 3 or 4, maybe 5, 6 hours, depending on if it was the summer. And then when I had to go at 12 or 1 in the morning, and that's how they knew I was homeless, is they knew I had no place to go. I would just stay there until 1 in the morning because I had no place to go. It was legal for me to be there, but it wasn't legal for me to be in the restaurant, and I was on probation. So I did not want that trespassing charge, and that's what ended up happening. I got violation of probation over a trespassing charge. That's what did happen, and it sucked, but. Yeah, and so the kids at the coffee shop, some of them knew I was homeless, and some of them were homeless. But they didn't know that I lived half a block away on the same road as the coffee shop, and I just traveled like 5 minutes each night to and from there to the coffee shop. And so the coffee shop was like my home, and if anybody ever asked me where I spent my time, I would say, oh, the coffee shop, Stella's coffee shop. But really it was about, you know, 3/4 of it was at the coffee shop and the other quarter was at the restaurant sleeping. And those kids, they did not know that I lived half a block away in their neighborhood. They didn't know I was dumpster diving for all of my meals. There's Sexy Pizza was right next door to the burnt out restaurant. So I lived off of Sexy Pizza, dumpster pizza. They would leave boxes of pizza at night. It was such a lucky occurrence, but it did happen. The place next door was a pizza joint that left like really good pizza that had been made that day in boxes right on top of the fucking dumpster. They didn't even bother throwing it in the dumpster. They wanted the bums to eat it, and I was one of the bums. And so I would come and get at least one pizza almost every day from Sexy Pizza. And then if I wanted something different, I would go down to the 7-Eleven dumpster and I would eat the sandwiches that they throw away there, because those sandwiches are only a half day old, you know. They're still really good. Those stackers, the stacker sandwiches that they make at 7-Eleven, I used to really love those, even though they've got like chicken meat on it or something, but it's still, you know, still a really good sandwich. And I lived off those because they would throw away like 5 or 10 of those a day. And so between the pizza, the sandwiches, and my food stamps, I was able to do everything I needed to do for food. For a bathroom, I pooped in a bucket for 5 years, and at like 3:45 in the morning, I would go out to the dumpster, like more like 4:30. When I got up in the morning, which should always be like 4:30, 5:30, somewhere around there, I would get up, I would get high on meth, and then I would go take care of the toilet so the place wouldn't stink. And I would dump the toilet in the dumpsters. You know, it was so gross, but I mean, it was a necessity. I dumped the toilet in the dumpsters, and that's how most of the times I got caught. Is they would see me dragging a toilet across the street at like 4 in the morning and make the educated assumption that I was living in the burnt out restaurant, which is why they knocked it down. But it took them 5.5 years to knock down that burnt out restaurant. It took them 5.5 years. They wanted to just leave it there to gather dust, and so I took advantage of it. And so, yeah, what I'm getting at here is the people that you hang out with during the day, unless they follow you home at night, which is why I didn't date. I did date, actually, but I didn't date, like, a lot when I was homeless, because they would follow me home at night, and then they would see what my life was actually like, and I was not very proud of that. And so, so like, 11:15 p.m. would come around and the coffee shop closes and all the lights go out. By 1 a.m. all the kids are going home, all the normies are going home. I leave at about 1 in the morning. They don't know where I'm going. They don't know that I live just literally like a 30-second walk down half a block. And then I get up and I come down to the coffee shop every morning, and nobody knew. Nobody knew that I was a meth addict. Nobody knew that I was a heroin addict. Nobody knew that I was homeless. My family didn't know that I was homeless. I didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew. Like it was weird. Just like this guy, he was able to hide in the back of a Toys R Us. I hid in the back of a coffee shop, and I became a drug dealer, and I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, and I went from living in a burnt out restaurant to having a 5-star rental, a full 60-hour-a-week job as a Uber driver, a 30-hour-a-week drug dealer off job that was making me a lot of money. And I one day I pulled up to the coffee shop, and they're like, "What the fuck?" They all knew that I was homeless, the meth addict, you know. They all knew. I would talk fast, and I would be awake at all hours, and it didn't matter. I wouldn't get tired like them. I didn't eat anything. I would only smoke cigarettes. That was it. And they knew. Everybody knew. You think that they don't know, but they do. They all know. They knew that I was homeless, the drug addict. But then one day I roll up in a fucking 5-star 2022 Nissan Altima, or was it 22? I'm sorry, 2020 Nissan Altima. And I have the hottest girl in the coffee shop sitting in my my passenger seat, butts in the seats, and I've got the hottest girl in Denver, much less the coffee shop. I've got Cloud Candy, the hottest girl on the planet, is sitting in my seat, and I'm driving a $40,000 luxury sedan. I've got 2 jobs and $3,000 cash in my pocket, but nobody knows, not even the girl. The girl didn't know. Nobody knew. And they're like, what the fuck, Cat? Like, what the fuck, Cat? Like, what the fuck, Cat? Like, you were this homeless meth addict last week. How are you driving did you drive it like you stole it? Like, what the fuck? I'm like, no, I'm paying the rental on this car. I'm taking this girl to a 5-star hotel room. I'm doing fine. I've got 2 jobs. I am employing one of the boys who sits in the back of the coffee shop as a driver for this car currently. And they were like, what the fuck, Cat? You're like this homeless drug addict living out of the back of some dude's like couch in a burnt out restaurant, and you live at the coffee shop 18 hours a day. What the fuck are you talking about? And I was like, well, I just kept working. I kept getting connections. My friend A helped me when I needed her to. I started selling the dope instead of smoking it. Well, I mean, I smoked it too, but I'm mainly selling it. And I did fine. I pulled myself up my bootstraps inside of 15 months. And there was a girl there named Stella, who sits at the back of Stella's, who was like, I believe in you. You can do this. I did it too. Like just 5 years ago, I was a meth addict. I was homeless. I was living in the back of the coffee shop, and she looked at me and she told me something that I'll never forget. I love my friend Stella, and I'm blowing her like her name because it doesn't matter. But Stella from Stella's, she told me that it didn't matter. If you try hard, you'll get up. It's giving up that kills you. And she was like, if you keep trying and you try to work every day and you don't sit and rest on your laurels, you can dig yourself up off the streets. And now I'm driving a $50,000 car. I have a job with the Mental Health Center of Denver, and that was her I'm talking about. She had a job with the Mental Health Center of Denver. She was a psychiatrist with her full accreditation, and she was making like $100,000 a year. And she was like, 5 years ago, I was on the streets, a meth addict like you, sitting in the back of the coffee house. And if I can do this, you can do this. And I told her, I will. Give me 12 months, I'll do it. And I did. I showed up. I drove into the back of the coffee shop with the hottest girl in Denver with $3,000 in my goddamn pocket and a luxury sedan and 2 jobs. And everybody in the coffee shop fucking loved me to death. And I'd gone from homeless, the nameless dog boy, to, cool cat or whatever. And then I started employing people at the coffee shop, basically. And they saw that I was ready to pretty much share it, too, and make everybody else rich, too. And then the government shut down my business overnight and killed Craigslist. And I was out. I was out of my years. All that money, all that stuff went away, and there was nothing left but a drug addict and a bunch of rock bottom, And that's what they never tell you is you go up and down and up and down and up and down in this life a lot. Every 5-10 years you go up and down, maybe a divorce or a fucking drug addiction or something. It's just like that. Life goes up and down all the time. When the girls knew that I was the guy who could pull myself up off the motherfucking streets from a burnt out restaurant, I was literally tricking girls to come to the burnt out restaurant and sleep with me off of Craigslist and convince them that I was just taking care of a burnt out restaurant. But no, I was a squatter living in a burnt out restaurant. But I told the girl that I was either the sommelier or the maitre d's son or the restaurant manager's son, and then the daddy's mad at me, so I'm living in the burnt out restaurant right now. But I mean, it's my business to take care of the restaurant, make sure nobody burns it down or vandalizes it or anything. And that's how I convinced 3 different girls to sleep with me while I was homeless, living in a squat. And these are women who had, expensive cars and lifestyles and jobs and stuff. I got them to come in with me to a burnt out fucking restaurant. They can see that there's no power, no water, nothing at all, and I'm living by candles and a power cord. And they can tell that I've never harmed another living thing, and I never will. And I tell them that I'm there on official business and I'm the owner's son, and I burnt down the restaurant or something. I didn't say that, but it's kind of implied. And I'm like, I burnt down the restaurant, but I live here now. And they just take this. It's a terrible lie. But I mean, they want to believe me. And they do believe me when they realize that I'm harmless and all that stuff. And all I want to do is sleep with them. I'm not some weirdo, And when they realize I'm just some normal guy who's trying to draw himself up by his fucking bootstraps, call me Bootstrap Bill or whatever. Some women understand my story, and I can sleep with them when I'm 350 pounds living in a burnt out restaurant. I can still sleep with them. Something about it. It's not charming them. I don't charm women. I just don't hide from them like everybody else does. I tell them exactly what's going on, you know. Unless it's somebody I've never met before. Unless it's somebody off of Craigslist, I don't tell them my life story. But if it's somebody I know, I do. And even then, I still tell them. I even got one girl. I'll never forget this. She was fucking normie. She showed up in a normie car with a normie body and a normie haircut and a normie life, normie job. I can't remember what it was, like bank manager or something like that. And I was like, I don't know. As we walked up to the burnt out restaurant, I was like, I don't know. You don't actually maybe seem like my type. You seem very normal and very down to earth. And I'm like this artist, druggy type who wanted to party all night and fuck. And I told her this as we were walking up to the door. And she was like, well, what makes you think I don't want to do that? And I was like, well, I don't know. I look at your car and your clothes and your hairdo. And I'm like, do you really want to get high and fuck all night? Is that really what you came here to do? And she was like, absolutely. And she was like, what do you have? And I was like, well, you don't want to know. And she was like, you can't scare me. And I was like, well, crystal meth. And she was like, break out the pipe. And this is Mrs. Bank Manager, you know, with normal fucking normie clothes and normie hair and shit. And sure enough, she's a freak in the motherfucking sheets and all this shit. She smokes bowls with me all goddamn night in the burnt out restaurant and lets me fuck her in the ass on her request. And I'm dead serious, and that was her idea. And I was like, sure, I'd love to get... This is every meth user's dream, living in a burnt-out restaurant as a squat because you're spending all your money on meth or whatever, and fucking some girl in the ass while you smoke bowls of meth with her. That's every meth addict's dream. That's like literally what we do it for. That's who we are, you know? And I was like, that's really what you want to do? And I was like, I'm not pressuring you. No peer pressure. I honestly think it's a bad idea. And she was like, nope. Take me to the dark side. And I was like, okay, here you go. And I loaded a fucking pipe, and I just smoked it, and I was like, come kiss me and shit. And they love it when I do this shit. I was like, come kiss me and shit. And she comes over and she gets naked and she starts kissing you and shit, and I take a fucking hit, I blow it in her goddamn mouth. She doesn't even have to touch the pipe, you know. I used to corrupt women. I used to corrupt people really bad. You know, I just bring out whatever they want to do, and I'm like, well, that's my life. When they bring up what they want to do, I tell them that's my life. You know, I play video games all day. I dream about fucking girls in the ass while I smoke meth. I mean, I'm sorry, but, you know, and I don't do that anymore, but that's what I did for 13 years or something like that. And there was this point around 2020 where I didn't even have to hide it anymore. I would just go, I would go right on the Craigslist, and I would be like, I really want to smoke a bunch of Tina with you and fuck you while we watch Netflix for 12 hours. That's literally what I used to put on the ad. I didn't even tell them what I looked like. I wouldn't leave a picture or anything like that. I would just leave a sentence, and I'd be like, email me to trade pics, right? And you'd be surprised how well that works. You'd be surprised how many women just want to go to the dark side that night. You know, there's 3.5 billion women on the fucking planet, and like probably like 100,000 of them at any given time of day would absolutely love to go to the dark side with you and let you fuck them in the ass while you smoke meth in some burnt out restaurant. That's one of the reasons why I was doing it. You know, I was pushing the limits, trying to see what other humans did and what they thought might be fun. She could tell I was homeless. She could tell I was lying. She could tell I did not live at the restaurant. I mean, I lived at the restaurant, but I had no auspice to be there. She could tell that I was a bad drug addict. She could tell all these things. They always can. You can't hide it from them. But if you don't hide it from them, you'd be surprised. And they'll let you do nasty, nasty things to them. It's actually the lies and the mask that women actually don't really like. And it's funny because women live by the mask, I would say. They're not superficial. They just wear the social mask everywhere that they go, trying to make everybody else believe that they are better than they are. You know, they let the whole world believe that they're the fairer sex and that they're not naughty or anything like this. But no, the girl will often surprise you. The girls will surprise you.
He was very engaging, down to earth, nice fella. My bullshit meter.
The nicest ones are always the naughtiest, weird, regressed Catholic girls that need you to do nasty, nasty things to them that I'm not even really comfortable with. There's like some girls that they'll like basically ask you to rape them, and I'm like, no, I don't do pain.
Me.
I'm not into S&M. I don't believe in pain during sex. I'll tell them right to their face. I'll tweak your nipples or something, but I am not hurting you. I'm not into pain. You know.
Good side to this guy.
But every girl I've ever been with was, because they're all rape victims, and something about that regression, it makes them desire S&M. I don't know why.
That's what I'm struggling with now. The other side. I'm not entirely convinced that it's tough to scam a church pastor who believes in an invisible man in the sky, but the point is that just about everyone in the local church community felt that John Zorn was a thoroughly decent and kind chap.
I'm
just
sure.
Because he's a bit of a criminal doesn't mean he can't be decent and kind.
Yes, it does.
These are not mutually exclusive things. Sure,
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. You are excusatory. You are ableist. You are ableist, this criminal, to be like, oh, if he never harmed anybody, we can all look up to him and respect him still. No. If you take the law into your own goddamn hands, get what you deserve.
Armed robbery
The complete, shunning of society.
on the side. But that doesn't mean he's, like...
Happened to me, should happen to him,
Doesn't mean he's a...
No. Yes,
and
it does.
Girlfriend, Lee Wayne Scott.
Yes, it does make him... Yes, it does mean that he is a dick. Yes, it does.
That a new bit of trouser...
This is what's wrong with America these days, is you're too ableist and too excusatory towards people that actually have bad acting at heart. They're like actually there to like harm people, and like you are too excusatory these days. It's not that I want to brutally punish them. It is that we cannot excuse their bad behavior just because they have a good personality or something like that. Boys will be boys doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's this savage hypocrisy for the genders.
Criminal on the run. At least we now know where all of those toys for kids were coming from. I bet they never got to see any of the really cool Spider-Man stuff, though. All of this does make you wonder if Ruthman was ever tempted to give up his life of crime and just settle down in Charlotte. He'd managed to get away with being John Zorn for several months. Perhaps he could have set up a new roof tiling business and found himself proper lodgings that extended...
That's what I do.
...a stairwell.
That's what I did.
He already had friends, a new relationship, new respect.
I don't wish to name my LLC here, but I started an LLC in 2017, and I grew it into a successful business by 2021, making $3,000 a year with 3 different jobs, 2 of which were legitimate, and 1 of which wasn't. And like I did this, I did everything that he's talking about. I even lived in the restaurant. It's crazy.
He must surely have considered the option of embracing this new grown-up life. But I suppose the problem is that he was very much living a lie.
Nope, he's a career criminal. He'll never cotton to other people. Other people will stop him from being the mastermind criminal that he believes himself to be. Other people literally stop you from doing it. Your wife will be like, no, you can't do this anymore. You can't be with me and still go to jail. You can't put our kids at risk. No, I'm not going to have kids with you. You're a jailbird. You're going to go to jail for robbing banks. Whenever you get the money, you don't split it with me. You spend it all on crazy things like more things to rob more banks with, And you live in weird, crazy things like the back of the Toys R Us because you aren't a real human being. You're basically that troll under the bridge who will do anything. I know, because that's me. I'm that troll under the bridge who will do anything except murder, rape. Those potatoes did not cook like they did yesterday. It's because I didn't use any liquid in the pot. I only used some vinegar and some salt. That was it.
John Zorn didn't exist. Perhaps he could only keep up.
Yep, and the longer you live false lives like this, the less you... Okay, so there was this point where... I remember my mother had to talk me out of going... Like, I did not want to go back to my real personality. I did not want to go back to my real life. I did not want to go back to my real name. I did not want to go back to dealing with anything. I just wanted to live with my druggy girl and in my motel room and just avoid reality for a really long time. And like my mother had to convince me to come back. I had definitely Peter Panned. Like, for instance, the last time I crossed my mother, I know what it is. I'm not happy about this. I decided to write myself a suicide present out of her Amazon account. And as I was going to go attempt to commit suicide for the second time because I failed the first time, I wrote $1,000 worth of things that I gave to my ex-girlfriend. I just gave it to her. I was like, here's $1,000 worth of Amazon stuff, whatever you want. Write a list and I'll buy it. And this terrified my mother, but it was the wake-up call. Like, she had to call me and convince me to return to the human race in some verifiable way. because she was like, why did you steal $1,000 out of my Amazon account? And why did you buy weird things like sex toys and weird girl stuff? She was like, wouldn't you normally buy video games? She was furious with me. She was ready to kill me, like quite literally. And she was like, why did you rip off my Amazon account? And I was like, well, you don't want to hear this, but I didn't expect you to find this for like another day or two. And I was just going to leave. And she was like, oh. And I was like, yeah, I was just gonna leave. And so I gave the woman that I love something. She's never had anything. I've never had anything. So I just gave her things she wanted. It was my goodbye to her, and it was my goodbye to you. And that's what I told her while I was in the madhouse. And she was like, well, you need to change and all this. And we had this long fight for like weeks and stuff. She was like, you need to change. You need to get back in the saddle again and all this. And I was like, no, I'm done with the human race, and I've been burned, and I'm ready to leave here now. And she was like, you're just sick. And I was like, sick? And she was like, yeah, you're sick. You have issues with your body. You're overweight. You need counseling more. You need physical therapy and PTSD therapy and all this. And she was like, I want you to promise me that you'll give me another couple years. You know, I was like, okay, yeah, no lies, just love, like Sparkle Horse. I was like, okay, no lies, no love. That's something I can live with. And I stuck around for her. And we won in the end. She was right. I was sick. I'm getting better every day. I was sick, you know. But it wasn't that I was sick with, like, body issue stuff or body problem stuff. It was that I just didn't believe that any of this was worth anything anymore. That's a sickness. They call it dysphoria. It's when nothing's fun to you anymore because nothing's valuable to you anymore. You know, dysphoria. I'm sorry, I thought it was always DY, but it's actually DIS, dysphoria. Yep, it's multiple matches for dysphoria, including a mental state, a term for gender identity, and a short film. Dysphoria is a mental state of deep satisfaction or unease that is the opposite of euphoria. It can be a symptom of many mental illnesses, including anxiety, depression, stress, and substance use disorders. Like, it wasn't just one thing, it was all of this. I was terrified they were going to keep me in the system for the rest of my life when I really had never really ever done anything to them. I was depressed in the fact that I was anxious that they were going to throw me in jail for 10 years. I was under stress because I thought they were going to throw me in jail for 10 years and I'd lost the love of my life and a man had tried to kill me and I was in the madhouse and I was addicted to any substance that you can name, from the video games to pussy to porn to weed to meth or heroin or alcohol or whatever, cigarettes, it doesn't matter. I had every fucking, every substance use disorder that you can have all at once. I've got a crippling video game addiction. In a psychiatric context, dysphoria can also accompany agitation. You're like constantly unable to relax. You're like, I need to move, I need to do something, but I can't because I'm so dysphoric, because there's nothing left. There's no government to vote for. There's no woman to love. She's gone. She's been terrified away by all the men who have gone amok. That just used me as an excuse to go crazy and mistreat others and act like general pieces of shit. One of my best friends had just been raped by a cop, and she brought the baby to bear. And they took the cop, but because she was raped by a cop, she was so depressed that the system took the baby away from her. So that's why she was doing meth with me in the gutter. That one fucked me up. So then I hunted the cop for her. And there was this point where I had to stop. I had to stop with that. He raped her and left her to die in a fucking dumpster in Littleton. And and that was the average stress that I was dealing with. They killed my job overnight. The government just full-blown closed Craigslist personals, and I literally went from making $3,000 a day to zero overnight. And I can't tell you how horrible that is when you feel that you've finally made it. And all that work and every book that you ever read and every song you ever sang and every kiss you ever gave and every person you ever met and every fucking hand you ever shook was for that moment when you finally got got free of their digital serfdom, and pretty much that day they just when they realized that they weren't controlling me being the digital drug dealers or the hookers being the women that were selling sex out of Craigslist and Backpage, and they cracked down on Backpage and Craigslist the same day. So not only did I lose my $3,000 a day job, all of my friends lost their $3,000 a day jobs, and it was like a deep Great Depression overnight. Everybody I knew was crying and smoking meth and fucked up because their jobs and their money had dried up, and it was just gone. Every kingpin and every dealer I knew was fucked because their main thoroughfare was completely done, and it just seemed like the only people actually trying to dig themselves out of poverty were who the government killed first, you know? I would say that the hookers and the drug dealers and the hustlers are the people that are proactively trying to dig themselves out of goddamn poverty right then and there. So that's the people that the government attacks the first immediately. They really want you to be a serf all of your goddamn life. And so when they saw that saw that me and many other people were starting to really make money off of Craigslist, they just shut it off overnight with no warning, nothing at all. And my phone dried up overnight. The magic phone kept ringing, so I was able to stay in the business for another year because my partner had a magic phone that didn't need Craigslist, but I did. My business dried up overnight. Suddenly, it was only about the same 15 regulars that I had had for 3 years, and so I religiously kept my regulars for 2.5 more years, but I didn't ever leave my house. I didn't ever go to them. I had them come to me to the donut shop, and I kept them because they were religiously spending money on me, and we were using that to essentially to get by. My ex-girlfriend and I were living in a garage, and we needed their income to even survive, to eat, you know. And so I didn't stop, and I should have stopped because it was a terrible influence on my ex-girlfriend. And also I got her to smoke meth, and that ruined her for a little while. She was able to dig out of it, but that did ruin her for a little while, but it was her fucking idea. She made me promise. She traded me, whatever. She traded me sex for it. She was like, I will do anything for it. And I was like, okay, fine. I'm not going to tell you no anymore. I've told you no 550 times or something. And you've got it very clear through your head that you can't blame me for this. You're demanding it from me, right? And she was like, yep. And I was like, I don't want you to do this. I've told you no like 500 times. I do not believe you're ready for it. And she was ready for it, actually. One of the reasons I was in love with her is she's actually a gonzo. She was totally fine. She was finer than I was. She got out of it faster. She was doing better. And and she can do any drug known to man. And so and that's very rare in a woman. It's not uncommon, but it's rare. And it was an interesting time, and I talk about this because I need it off my back, but the dysphoria of all of it, losing her, being a drug addict, the anxiety of the system, the depression of the system, the digital serfdom, the killing of the MMOs, the killing of the video games, the death of Overwatch, the death of WoW, the death of Final Fantasy XI, the death of fucking EvE. The EvE got down to 9,000 players. Everybody and everything was depressed. Even EvE Online got down to 9,000 players right around 2022. It was COVID. I want to write a book about this called Love in the Time of COVID. I don't even care that I didn't land the big one, I care that I tried, and I don't think most people were trying back then. I tried to love her with all of my heart and soul. I gave her every dollar that I could. I tried to make sure that she really understood that she was my everything, And that was the best we could do. The man still tried to kill her. The man still tried to kill me. The man still tried to, to kill me, and he ended up in jail. There was nothing I could do about all of that stuff, as she left like a smart person should, Smart person doesn't live in a flop house with Republican crazy pieces of shit that smoke meth. It's just not very wise. I'm not very wise. I'm in it for the fun, so I'll live in the flop house with Republican pieces of shit who smoke meth all day. I don't care about that, I don't care if they don't like my girlfriend's black friend, I don't care.
But the pretense for so long before reverting back to Roofman and slinking back to his secret lair every night to work on the next phase of his villainous master plan. Yeah, and at some point he's going to be like, well, he can't live in the stairwell of Circuit City forever. So he's going to want to get an apartment, or his girlfriends want to get...
I mean, she was my friend too, But yeah, it's just weird, And so, yeah, there was this point where the government had died, my drug deal business had died, All my other hustles had died. The coffee shop died. Nobody was going to that anymore. The fucking, I mean, maybe it's better again, but I doubt it. I think the Legion of Doom left the coffee shop when COVID hit, and I think they moved to digital. I'm fairly sure. So I'm a member of the Legion of Doom, which is the cool kid circle that runs the entire city of Denver, that sits in the back of Stella's coffee shop. You know, all the brain trusts of Denver, they sit in the back of that goddamn coffee shop, and I'm a member of that crew. We're called the Legion of Doom. There's like 400 people in it or something like that. They're all in a big Facebook group, and it's actually a really deep organization that I'm a member of, that I've employed members of, and I have been drug addicts with some of the people, and I've fucked some of the girls and all this. Like, I have definitely been in the Legion of Doom for like 10 years, and I left the Legion of Doom when I stopped being a drug dealer, and I stopped chasing girls, and I stopped being a human, and I stopped being a member of the human race. And I mean, I'm not talking about doing something horrible. I'm talking about I just stopped considering myself the same cut of the same cloth. I just don't really consider myself human like them. I still think I have some sort of conscience. I think the average conscience is money now. If money is in the equation, conscience goes out the window. I couldn't give a flying fuck about that, you know? So now I look at it and I'm like, I don't know. I tried so hard and I got so far, but in the end, it didn't really matter, you know, like Linkin Park. And you get kind of bitter about it. You're like, I lost the girl, I lost the job, the government's corrupt, the city burned, Lahaina burned, Normal burned, for all the cities I've ever been in burned, the rent's $1,000, the rent's $2,000, the jobs are still $10 an hour, but the rent's $2,000. Everything, everyone I knew died, everything. And I don't mean this to be negative or to despair. Notice that I don't have any sadness or unhappiness in my voice when I say it. I believe that reform was possible, and I believe that is what occurred. And I think we kind of had a experience with what they call ego death as America. And I believe I experienced that ego death during COVID. And I believe the desperation taught me who I was and who I wasn't. And now I think I'm okay, because I did see who I was and who I wasn't. A lot of people didn't. They just sort of sat around on computers all day, I think. But I mean, I did not. I went and chased every dream, every girl, every dollar, every drug, every minute, every day, every month, every week, every month for like 7 years. It was like it was like between 5 and 7 years. I'm not really totally sure how long it was. It was like 7 years because the abyss didn't come very fast. It took 2 years before I was totally on the streets. And that's when I met my friend who got raped in Littleton. And that's what brought me to the flop house and all the problems. Was I was like walking down the Platte Park River, and I was freshly homeless, and I had like nothing but a backpack, and I saw this girl screaming at what I found out later to be she was screaming at an imaginary cop who had raped her in Littleton. And she was throwing a $300 stolen laptop into the lake, and she was stomping up and down in the water, screaming uncontrollably. And while she wasn't attractive, she was interesting. She was one of the more interesting women I had ever met. And I was like, tell me your life story. I yelled at her while she was having a mental breakdown in the middle of a lake. And I just watched her physically take her laptop that was running and smash that $300 piece of shit on one of those tablets, you know, little PC tablet thing. She smashed her $300 working tablet, which to me was like one of the worst things I've ever seen a human being do. Smash a tablet when you're homeless. It was like one of the worst things I'd ever seen a human being do, but it inspired me to talk to her. I was like, you have to be fucked up if you are homeless and you are willing to destroy a computer like that. You obviously were just using it. What is going on? And she was like, well, I'm mad that I'm going to lose my friends because they're only interested in new people and I've been with the crew for too long. And that actually is what ended up happening. She was right to fear that. She had been in the crew for too long. My weird Republican meth head friends, they were looking for fresh blood in their crew, like me, that would interest them while they were getting high, teach them new things, and make fun of people, and you know, and help them. And maybe they weren't jaded. Maybe they knew drug dealers that they didn't know, and all this. And so I did very well with her crew. And I was like, oh, your crew has abandoned you? And she was like, yeah, I live in a house with a bunch of fucking meth heads, and we're like, you know, we're really tight, but I mean, I've been here for about 2 years and they don't like that I've been here so long. And I'm finding it harder and harder to go back there when I need to, but I'm homeless and I need help. And I was like, man, I just became homeless yesterday, like full blown, lost my car. my best friend bought me a tent, and I came down to the river to look for a place to camp. You want to be homeless with me? And I was like, oh well, it would be cool to get laid while I was homeless. You know, I don't care how girls look. You know, I care how they look, but I don't care if I'm single. You know, I don't care what a girl looks like if she's interesting to me. And she was like, well, yeah, but I got to get high. And I was like, well, so do I. And she was like, do you know anybody? And I was like, no. And she was like, well, I do. I'm going to take you to meet my friends and shit. And she was like, I like you. You're very forward like me. And I'm going to talk to you now. And I'm going to be your best friend for a while. And I was like, okay. This is what always happens with the crazy druggy girls. They like me for some reason. It's because I don't judge them. I don't care what they put in their mouths. You know, I don't care. Or their butts. I don't care what humans put in their mouths or their butts. I don't care. I don't care about that. So, yeah, and so she takes me to meet my other friend who ended up being my best friend for like 5.5 years or something, who owns the house. And we ended up being pretty tight, but then what she predicted happened. She had been there for too long. He wanted to help me, not her, so he wrote her out. And she just ended up getting kind of burned with that crew. She had been there for too long. He was looking to help people. She had been there too long. I needed help. And so I took the biggest leap I've ever taken. I didn't know that dude. I had only met him once, and we got high at his house, and I liked him. I liked his crew, and I liked his people, and except for the dude living in the house with him, but other than who tried to kill me later, but all the rest of them I liked. And so out of nowhere, the next day, I just walked to his house. He didn't know me, didn't know my name or anything like that. I just walked up to the fucking front door. I knocked on it, and he answered, and he was like, hey, I remember you. I wondered if you would ever show up again. And I was like, hey, man, I just recently became homeless like 2 days ago. And I see that you've got this house that you own, and I need some help here and here. I need like a couch to sleep on or something like that. I wonder if you'll get me high. I don't think I need to sleep on your couch if you don't want me to. But I am destitute, broke, and homeless on the streets. I'm living out of a tent, and I woke up this morning with a drug addiction and no money. Will you get me high? And he was like, absolutely, friend. And he did. And then we got high again and kept getting high for 5.5 years. And I met all of his friends, all of them. I helped him do crazy things. I helped him make certain crazy amounts of money. I helped him like save his house and all this other stuff. And we wrote her out of the picture when she overstepped his boundaries and tried to live in his house as a squatter without his permission. I never did that. I'd always be like, hey, do you mind if I crash on your couch tonight? I would always ask him beforehand. I'd be like, do you mind if I crash on your couch tonight? And he'd be like, oh yeah, that's fine, man. Like, no one's here. You know, there'll be people partying, but you know, no one's gonna take the couch. No, you can have it. And I was like, oh, cool, thank you so much. And I really needed that. I stuffed my clothes under his couch, and I lived there on and off between the restaurant and his house. I lived there. When I was in trouble at the restaurant, I went to his house, and when I was in trouble at his house, I went to the restaurant. And occasionally, when I needed to be alone, I just would go to the restaurant, because you never get time to yourself when you're homeless, ever. And so, like, that went well for a while, but then meth eventually does just break everybody. It breaks everybody's brain, and it got too suspicious. And his best friend and housemate was running his life and controlling him, and then he chose to attack me. And by attacking me, he locked the back door, which was our access to the bathroom, where my girlfriend and I were living in the garage, and we couldn't go to the bathroom in the goddamn garage. So when we were unable to, we were paying rent at that time too, $400 a month. I was still paying rent for the piece of crap garage that didn't even have a bathroom, you know? It never was like I ever was really living there for free. It never really was like that. And so I stopped paying rent when he stopped letting me use the bathroom, because his fucking roommate started locking the door on us when we needed to use the bathroom and take baths and showers and stuff. And we were like, no, you can't do that. We're not going to pay you rent if you deny us access to the bathroom. And the owner was like, well, I can't stop him from locking the door. He has to have a key. He's a paying renter. But I mean, like, I can't stop him from locking the door on you. And I was like, yes, you can, but you're not going to. And that actually was the truth. And so we agreed to disagree. I stopped paying rent, and because of this, his roommate decided that he wanted to kill me because I wasn't paying rent anymore, because they weren't allowing us to use the bathroom. To me, rent is paying for a bathroom, essentially. Maybe there's a nice house with a, you know, or like an apartment with a bedroom in it, but generally you're paying for a sink, a kitchen, a bathroom, and a front door. If any of the rest of that stuff is there, it's nice. But I mean, like, that's the things that you're paying for when you pay for rent. It's the ability to go to the bathroom and use a sink and close a door. And they denied my ability to, like, open or close the door to the house so I could use the restroom, or my girlfriend could use the restroom. We were like even though we were expected to pay $400 a month of rent, we were expected to walk like a block down to the donut shop and use their public restroom at like 4:45 in the morning. And that's what we did too for like a year. That's what we did. She would pee in the fucking bucket and make me turn my eyes and block my vision and shit, because it's like they would not let us use that bathroom. It was a weird subtle form of weird control. And it was weird because I was paying rent. I was paying rent the whole time. I was not late or slow or anything like that. My family was helping me pay rent. I pay rent. And like the minute that he shut that back door so we couldn't use the bathroom anymore, I stopped paying rent. And when that happened, his roommate went full out war against me, and he started kicking in the door and beating the shit out of me for no goddamn reason at all. We were paying rent. Even at the time when he started beating me, we were still paying rent. It was insane. It was like he just picked a fucking person to just beat the shit out of. There was no reason for him to act that way. We didn't cross him or steal from him or anything at all. We were very nice to him. I even used to drive him to work. But then he just flipped his script, and he decided that because he locked the door on me, because he suddenly didn't like me for some weird psychotic cocaine head reason, that he needed to kill me. And that's what he attempted to do. He threatened my girlfriend's life, and then he attempted my life with a fucking circular saw. Like a year later, it was insane. I lost her, and then he tried for me a year later. And I never did anything to this man. I'm dead serious about this. It was never for any reason. When you get all of that stuff all at once, you get dysphoria. When you get, drug addiction, man trying to kill you, man threatening your lover, man threatening your lover to the point where she leaves you, like depressed, not like leaves you. She never left me. She just didn't live with me anymore because he would have probably killed her or raped her or something. He was a fucking nut. He was a hunchback crazy person who had been in jail a bunch of times and definitely told me that he killed a man when he was 16 years old in Mexico City. He was definitely like a killer. I don't think he was kidding when he said that. I looked him in the eyes. I did not see a lie, So yeah, we were both experiencing dysphoria because we didn't have any family, we didn't have any love really besides each other, we didn't have any TLC, we didn't have friends, we didn't really have a house, we didn't have a bathroom, we didn't have hope. We had drug addictions for hope. That was it. It was like the replacement for hope was a drug addiction. I gave her my drug addiction. That wasn't wise. She had to battle that for a year and a half. I battled her on it. She demanded it, and I was like, okay. She was like, I have to see why you're willing to throw your life away. And I was like, okay, I can't tell you no.
Yeah, gonna want to get married.
I did. I told her no for like a year and a half, but eventually she was just like, you're going to tell me yes or we'll never speak again. And I was like, okay.
They're gonna be like, I didn't need to seize my...
That's what they eventually do. That's what the humans do when they burn you. They tell you, well, you owe me, and we've been together for so long, or you've been with me for so long that you have to do this, and you do something for them, and you get fucked. You get fucked, And for me, it was like she essentially like forced me to turn her into a drug addict. She like demanded that I let her do it. That she like forced me to. She was like, I will leave you. I would never. She threatened me with still what I consider to be the worst thing that I can imagine, which is never speaking to her again. That's what she threatened me with if I didn't get her high. I told her no like 6,500 times or something like that. I was like, fuck no. I was so certain. I was like, nope. For like a year, I was like, nope. And eventually she was like, you're gonna say yes to me or you're never gonna see me ever again. And I was like, okay, all right. Ruin your life if you want to, but remember, I'm not going to keep doing this for you. I told her, I was like, I'll start with you, and I'll teach you how to do it so you don't fuck up and catch like AIDS or Hep C like all my ex-girlfriends did. But like other than that, like I can't prevent you from doing this, and I'm sure she's got a lifelong addiction. I'm sure, just like I do. The difference is she has conquered it, I believe. At least I hope so. She has not shown warning signs that she hasn't. So. Yeah.
Oh no!
And we stick together. We stick together through the thick and thin all the time. I don't even care if I ever see her again. It's the only friendship I have left. I don't care. I'll hold on to it. I'll preserve it. I damage it. I block her sometimes. I'll do things that I block people out of my own channel for. Like I blocked somebody being like, "Do not block girls. Do not block girls." But I blocked her because I knew that I love her so much I would die for her, and that's never going to change. And that blocking her is like the one freedom. It's the one freedom I'll ever, like, the love is so deep that the only freedom that I could ever seek with it would be to block her completely, If I would ever get freedom from it, I'm going to be emotionally unavailable for the rest of my life. It's like some shitty spell, She was the one I was seeking, It cast a shitty spell on me that she threatened to take away from me if I didn't get her high. And then I broke her heart when I got her high and gave in to her. And then, so she tasted of the apple too young, and now she's dealing with that. And I lost her, just full-blown lost her. I shouldn't have done it.
Think about that.
But she forced me. She forced my hand. The pigs always force my hand too. It's always like that too. It's so annoying. It's always like that. They push they force my hand. And the minute that I feel that I don't have freedom as an American anymore in a relationship or with in say like a relationship or with a relationship with my government or anything like that, if I don't have autonomy anymore, I'm donezo for their zo, for here zo, for right now zo. I'm just full blown donezo for their zo, for right now zo. I'll just stop. If I don't have complete autonomy with the relationship, if I don't have complete autonomy with the government, if the government will not let me smoke drugs, I will not deal with the government. I will not ever support them or ever like them or ever do anything with them or ever tell anybody that they're a good force or that, you know, it doesn't matter what they do. The minute that they try and tell me to do something like get them high, I don't like them anymore. And I had to struggle with that. I had to continue to like her. Right? Because she forced me to do something. She told me to do something. She forced me to do it. And I had to struggle. I didn't talk to her for you know, I talked to her. I'm sorry. I never did leave her past that point because I knew how bad it would be. It would be like casting somebody adrift at like Life of Pi or something like that. It's like you're the tiger, but you don't want to leave at that point because, yeah, you're the tiger that destroyed her, but you don't want to leave because you're her only friend, you know? You're not her only friend, but you're like the only one that actually is real with her, that loves her, that is actually like there all the time, that's been there through the thick and the thin. You're the real person in the life besides her family. And so, and all the time I have to convince them not to convince me to ruin their lives. And it doesn't matter. I'll enable them to do anything they want to do. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter. I don't care. And so, when it comes to that, I'm like, no, you don't want this. I want to kill the person who ever got me high the first time, you know? And that's what you're going to want to do to me. That was the excuse that I used when I told her no the first 6,500 times. I was like, no, I literally want to kill the person who got me high on meth the first time. I literally want to kill them. I remember who it is. And I don't want you to ever feel that way about me. I actually love you forever. You know, I actually do love her forever. It's going to be crazy like that. For me, it was like a marriage ending. For her, it was just another boy because she's young. For me, it was like a marriage ending. It sucked. It was not the same. It was like a marriage ending for me. She was the one that I wanted. And some asshole randomly scared her away. And my meth lifestyle just reared its ugly head directly at her and terrorized her quite physically, quite literally right in front of her. And my lifestyle reared its ugly head and snarled at her in her face and threatened her life. And she knew immediately that it was never going to work, and I don't blame her. But with that comes the resignation that you've lost everything that you've ever cared for, you know? You've lost your country, you've lost your politicians, you've lost your party, you've lost your love, you've lost your music, all your heroes are dead from junk or suicide, all of your friends have abandoned you, your family doesn't truly like you, your people are like, you know, totally scared of you because you were the craziest person on the planet, or at least in the country or something like that. It's just weird. I dislike it. The whole trip. If they had just been nice to me and been cool with me, we could have been cool the whole fucking time. But everybody always wants to paint me as the worst person on the planet or something like that. I've just never understood it. I think she wanted to do it too. I have to get resolution with that. I think she wanted to paint me to herself and myself that I was the worst person on the planet. I'm not the worst person on the planet. Not even close. Nope. Not even close. I've never harmed a living thing. I don't really deserve all this goddamn treatment. I deserve her, but I don't deserve the treatment, you know?
Just choose.
I'll not get her because I'm jaded. I will not land her because I am jaded. I have come to dislike this situation so much. It's not her. It's the feeling that humanity is crawling up my thigh with a knife in their goddamn teeth all the goddamn time. Even when I sleep, I can't ever relax. I believe the humanity is out to get me all the fucking time. It's not some paranoid delusion. That's what they did. They came after me and they tried to imprison me and shoot at me and stab me and try to fucking lock me up for smoking drugs and shit like that when I was a kid trying to play video games and smoke weed and all this other stupid shit. And at this point, there was this point where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want life anymore. I would easily leave it if it was easy to commit suicide, but it is not. And I'm not talking about threatening that or anything like that. That's how it was for 7 years. It was dysphoria. It's this feeling that, you know, it's a symptom of many mental illnesses and diseases all at once, all at the same time, all having a mental breakdown all at once right now today. You know? That's what dysphoria was, and I had to dig myself out of it. I had to believe that she was worth living for, fighting for, and dying for, whether or not I ever saw her again. I had to believe that America was worth living for, dying for, and being with, like, you know, even if I never ever saw it again, like some semblance of what I grew up with as America ever again, like the Wonder Years or something like that. I just don't think the Wonder Years can ever happen again, but that was the America that I grew up on, as the goddamn Wonder Years. And I just don't believe it possible anymore because, yeah, I convinced the goddamn prom queen to smoke meth. You know? I had them eat of the apple too young, you know? And that is not good. Like they weren't old enough. They weren't old enough. She was old enough, but that was the only saving grace, is she was absolutely old enough and mature enough to handle all of it. That was the only saving grace. She did not crash and burn, you know? She did not let it take her over. She was an inspiration to me. She wanted to. I could see it. She used to tell me, she used to tell me just straight to my face. She was like, I want what you want, which is to get really, really high and sing karaoke. It's the only thing that I want to do. And I was like, yeah, I live to worship you, play video games, and get high and sing karaoke. And I still do it. Some days she tunes in, some days she doesn't, you know? It doesn't matter, you know, some days I sing and she sees it, some days she doesn't. But it's still the same thing, and nothing changed. That was the reason I gave in to her, is she stated what I wanted too. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, I guess we do want the same thing. We had a lot in common, you know? We still do. And so I think about it all the time, and I'm like, nope, there goes the human race. I think about it right now today, and I know the truth, right? I know the truth. I will speak it loudly and clear. I will speak my truth, and I, you know, my own counsel will I keep as to what should happen. But I will speak my truth, and this is very true, right? My country's dead. My government's dead. But when I say country, my government's dead. The legal system killed me. The rent killed us. It killed America. The middle class is dead. John Lennon is dead. Lane Staley is dead. All of my heroes are dead. The places that I lived, like Lahaina, Hawaii, Normal, Illinois, Denver, Colorado, and Paradise, California, have all burned. The proof of the humans and their corruption and their death, it stinks everywhere I go. It's in the air now. It's coming in the fucking front door right now. I can smell the stink of their industrial corruption on the rural wind, you know? I can see that they're industrializing rural areas now. I can smell the stink of the corruption, of the death of humanity in every single thing that I've seen. From the fact that child sex is so common now, to the deep state, to the dark web, to the fucking, to the demon bankers, the rug pullers, the billionaire software despots fucking selling us their own reputation right back to them with like fucking crappy Tesla cars and stuff. All the child sex fucking content creator weirdo fucking efforts and all the problems of the fucking world. To me, it's like a dead sea. It's like a dead sea. It's still there, and it's still a body of water, and you can still swim in it, but it's a dead sea. It's like dead, you know? It's all the time I have to tell myself to hope that I can someday reach some kind of ideal where I might ever see her again, where I might ever see my country again, where I might ever see my people or my best friends ever again. I don't see that reality right now as we speak, because as it is, like whatever it is that was the spark of America and in my life and in my people and in my groups, all of my friends' siblings are mentally sick now. It's weird. Even their younger siblings are mentally sick now. It's like weird. Like there's not too much surcease. It's like who will stop to? It's like those old '60s songs. It's like Who Will Stop the Rain by Creedence Clearwater, or the one I was listening to the other day, which is like Electric Light Orchestra singing about Showdown, right? And there's rain, and it's raining all over the world. And so now I don't really see a reason to wake up anymore, because when I wake up, I'm soaking in the rain. You know, there may be diamonds in that house in the hill, in that house on the hills, but the people that live there still complain. You know, there may be diamonds in that house in the hills that Bill Gates lives in, but he still complains and he still sleeps with children. And so when I understood that there was nothing left, I had to turn around and understand that I was treading water, and that there was no hope, and that humanity had died, and our government had co-opted, and money was their god now, and drugs had been abolished, and, you know, and rape was the new norm, and the cities are burning because of the infrastructure theft and the fucking death of America, and all that I know and love, and the loss of the love of my life, and the inability to do anything for any of these goddamn people. I can scream, I can work, I can love, I can treat well, I can send money on the birthdays. It doesn't matter what I do. I will never dig myself out of that dysphoric problem. It will never ever end. It's not going to come back in 20 years. It's not some, you know, the grass will never be greener again, and it sucks. It's not only the loss of my youth. It was the loss of my innocence and the loss of my hope. Like, the loss of my hope was the worst part of it. When I came to understand that hope was folly now, and that money was their god. You know, and that I do not have any of their god currency. I don't have any of their god currency. They give me anything that I receive from them, because they sure as hell will not give me a job. They sure as hell will not let me invest. They will not let me do any of this stuff. If I invest in something, the stock will immediately fucking flatline. It doesn't matter. If I move to a town, it will burn. If I fall in love with a woman, she will convince me to turn her into something she doesn't want to be anymore. Like, I don't know. It happened to the last like 5 ones that I was with. I don't know what to do anymore. It is the loss of everything and everything and everyone that I knew and loved. And I don't say this to be sad or to be bummed out about it. I just state the truth like it's a problem. And I'm doing cross diagnosis like House, and I'm writing out symptoms and on the fucking board. And I'm like, okay, money is their god now. Love is this thing that it seems like isn't really too important to people anymore. Whatever happened to fall in love with a motherfucker with a bus pass, you know? That's a Dr. Dre quote, by the way. Whatever happened to fall in love with a motherfucker with a bus pass, huh? Because that's what I've got. I've got a bus pass, essentially. You know, whatever happened to fall in love with that? Nah, it's all got to be The Bachelor now. Everybody's got to be The Bachelor now. I'm sorry, but the world is not The Bachelor. Everybody I know has a drug charge, so trying to prevent the people from working if they have a drug charge just isn't fucking possible, because everybody I know has a drug charge, and I just don't know. I'm sorry, maybe my family doesn't, but that's about it. Everybody else I know has at least one little $20 weed ticket or something. Everybody I know, you know, and so I don't know. Everybody I know steals. Not everybody I know, but a lot of the people I know steal in some way or another. Like, for some people it's coupons, other people it's like Amazon returns, other people it's like, you know, like selling snake oil or something like that. It's weird. Like, but no matter what, if you aren't selling something, you're drowning, which is why I work on the stream and I don't hold back, and I tell people what the problems are and how to rise above. If the love of your life is gone and the men tried to kill you and you're no longer a member of the human race and your government is a dead memory, you know, dead memories in your eyes, and the world is plastic fantastic, and everybody's been hurt by the cold, and everybody who was hurt by the cold has been cast out by the government, and the rent is more expensive than your dream, and the reality is essentially dying as a squatter in an empty house as you fight the government as they essentially, like, you know, get in some other world war or kibitz more or get us in some other fucking thing or pay hoes overseas or neglect us. And so with the death of hope and with the death of America and the death of WoW and the death of video games and the death of love and the death of decency and how money is their god now and Satan is their ruler and all this weird shit, right? You're supposed to give up, but I don't. I just record all of it like some kind of fucking historian, right? And I call it Love in the Time of COVID. And I think of it as like a bullet, as a bullet, you know, as a hashtag on X or something like that, where you know, you have a buzzword for it. It's the Great Depression or something, or it's Love in the Time of COVID or whatever it is. But no matter what, I'm still gonna love you, even though I have no hope and no government, no allegiance, no leaders, no money, no taxes, no hope. Price fixing where my blood and my soul used to be. Price fixing instead of hope. You know, price fixing rent and and water and food and shelter and drugs and everything that we need to survive. You price fixed it into oblivion and killed humanity and killed America. And so, and I can just go on and talk about how you did all of this. You price fixed us into oblivion, you know? But I don't. I say, we're gonna be fine. Everything will be all right in the end. If it's not all right, it's not the end. And I catalog the piece of shit humans as they act piece of shit. And I make a personal history and I show the people how they acted and why I think why I do. And I try to get through this. I try to get through it. I believe that we can prevail. You know? I believe that America can prevail, and not in some weird, like, right-wing fascist, like, push the country, beat your chest kind of manner. I believe that we will prevail because we have seen the Dark Ages right after slavery. We have seen darker times than this and done absolutely just fine. And I believe that we can do so now. It's kind of like it's like Ghostbusters 2 or something. It's no longer like Ghostbusters 1 where we can blame, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man for all of our problems. Now the sewers are upflowing with Satan's hellspawn. And they want to judge you for doing drugs and money is their god. And love is no longer a currency in their lexicon. They don't know how to love. They don't know how to have good sex. And sex is a transaction to them like money. And money and sex are the only thing that they care about. And I'm sorry, but, not all of us are like this. I don't have to live like that. I don't have to think like that. I lost a lot of hope for it. I lost a lot of hope because of it. But I didn't give up. I'll tell you right now. And I think I'm the only one who didn't now. I think I'm like the only one who didn't. When I look at the resignation in my fellow Americans' eyes as they hand over a $2,000 rent check and you price fix them to goddamn death. You literally fuck them to death, like South Park says, You literally fuck us. You're literally fucking us to death with $2,000 rent, you fucking piece of shit, Richards. And you're killing us. You're fucking us to death, like South Park said. And I'm sorry, but I don't want to get fucked to death by these weird money people. I just don't. I don't care about their Bitcoin. I don't care about their fucking demon bankers in the Cayman Islands. I don't care about their fucking bullshit bot lobbies or their bot governments or their Palantirs or anything like that. I don't care that these things happen. I just don't like it, and I try not to lose hope because of it. And I succeed too. Like right now, I will look you right in the eye in the camera, and I will be like, I have not lost hope for us or America. I believe in our love, and I will die for our love.
Use a new name. You have to go buy identities from the dark web or whatever.
Yeah, fuck that shit. That's kind of how we are now. That's what our reality is. It's we're all dark web now. I think every American's been on the dark web. That's a shocking state of affairs when you look at 50s America, where they were scared to even when they were scared to smoke cigarettes, and stuff. Scared to smoke weed. Tetris is the greatest game ever made.
Or some dude who... How do they do it? Don't they take people who died as kids and then make new identities from them or something? That's how they do it in the movies, right?
So it's just McLovin?
Yeah. Yep.
Doesn't matter. Let's carry on.
Doesn't matter, carry
on.
on.
Of course, need to carry a gun for his latest armed robbery. And whilst he may have
Of course
lived
he
next
did.
door to a toy store, I'm sure he was aware that a Buzz Lightyear glow-in-the-dark Infinity Blaster wasn't going to do the business here.
Oh,
so, for the first time in a
no.
while, he carried out another rooftop operation. On November the 28th, 2004, he scaled the dizzy heights of a local pawn shop in the middle of the night, cut a hole through the roof
Of
and
course he
dropped
did. Of course he did.
down inside for a private nosy at what was on offer tonight. And he walked away with 4 handguns. During the same week, he took a trip to the local dentist's.
I think about this all the time. I'm like, that guy left that out. That guy left that door open. That guy left that thing and that roof open, and I can get in through there and take that. That guy did this. I am like a natural born criminal. I can see an opportunity, and I immediately know that I can get away with it immediately, whether or not I can or not. I'm that guy who doesn't miss the fact that she left the door open slightly. I think about it all the time. One time I entered a bar and attempted to rob a bar just purely because I noticed that the owner forgot to lock the door. And as we were leaving the bar, I noticed that they didn't lock the door. And I was like, well, I'm coming back for the goddamn cash register. And when I came back for the cash register, there was somebody there. Thank God. And I was like, oh, I left my cell phone. I'm so sorry. And they were like, why were you trying to kick this door in? Because I was like, why won't the door open? I know they didn't lock it. And I was like, I left my cell phone here and I need it. I've got emergency information I need right now. And they're like, oh, okay. And I like went in. I was like, oh, it's not here. I'm sorry. Have a nice night. And that's how I got out of essentially like a robbery charge. But I mean, I didn't enter that business.
Didn't want to rob anything on this occasion.
I tried to.
He just popped in to get a bit of work done. This might not seem massively significant now, but it gave everyone something to chew over.
I was like, oh, that business owner left his front door open as he was locking up, and I just do not believe he used any sort of security at all, and I'm just going to put on a mask and come back in a stolen car, and I'm going to empty that register of its bar money because I am homeless on the streets and I am fucking desperate. And yes, I stole a car, went to the bar, and attempted to kick the door in when the fucking cashier was there. And the cashier answered the door, thank God, or I would have gone further, you know. As I returned the car, back to its original state, which was very difficult. I had to take pictures to do that. I stole a car to rob a bar. And by rob a bar, I mean like go in through the open front door and take the money out of the register because I just didn't have the luxury not to do things like that at that time. I just didn't. I didn't know where my next meal was going to come from. I didn't have the luxury to ignore when somebody left their door open. You know, that sucked. I mean, you ever actually been on the streets? I don't think most people do. I think they have some weird like fantasy about like that parable that they tell about stealing bread for children when they ask you about morality when you're young. But no, in reality, if you're fucking starving and you've got no hope, you'll go walking in that open door pretty quick. When you got nothing, no hope, nothing, you'll go walking through that door that was left open pretty quick.
Just a few months later. By Boxing Day 2004, Roofman, or Jeffrey Manchester, or John Zorn, was ready.
Which one is he? Complete sociopath.
To make his big...
Probably autistic.
Big strike. Just a few days after...
I'm going to go pee and pour a glass of wine, and I will be right back.
Dressing up as Santa Claus to entertain the children at Crossroads Presbyterian Church, Roofman was hiding under his more familiar masked disguise when he burst out of nowhere to surprise the early morning customers at Toys R Us in search of a Boxing Day.
Please do not rob the Toys R Us in broad goddamn daylight. This is why crime is so bad. You end up being so crazy so fucking fast, you know? Like so fast. Like I went so quickly, I went from selling 20 sacks of meth to selling 8 balls of heroin to people who would likely probably die if they were to use the heroin, you know? Like overdose death. And that happened so quickly. It was like 2.5 years, and I went from like, you know, this innocent little like stoner kid that liked to get high on speed every once in a while to full blown like smoking black tar heroin in the motel with the stripper and selling black tar heroin because your fucking kingpin orders you to, not because he asked you to. He said, you have to start selling black for me or I don't sell you anything at all anymore. And I was like, okay. And he was like, welcome to the bigs. He was like, welcome to the bigs. Nobody ever tells you, but when you become a drug dealer, a successful drug dealer out of nowhere like you did, when you get to the big time, the first thing that you have to do is start selling black tar heroin to the steady black tar heroin customers, which will kill them. He told me right then, he was like, which will kill them. He was like, you will kill them and they will want to die. You know, they will want to get so high that they will die. He warned me about it. He was like, you will have customers that will disappear. And I was like, okay. In order to stay with you, I have to sell black tar heroin. And he was like, not only that, you have to take over downtown for me because I can't live in downtown. I'm too high profile. And I was like, okay. So I took over downtown for him. And the first thing he did was introduce me to one of my best friends who was a terrible, terrible needle junkie girl. And I love her, and I'm not going to say her name because she's still in the game. But she was, her father was a rock star, and she was a junkie, and he was rich. But she was a drug dealer, and she was only 17, but she was shooting heroin and living in her own apartment, like, you know, up there in downtown Denver in a $20,000 apartment that her fucking dad owned. Her dad owned the building. And I was like, why are you getting high on heroin? You're like rich and you have this rich dad who's famous and all this stuff. And she was like, I love heroin. It's great. It's great. I'm never going to let it go. It's my favorite thing in the whole world. I love it. And that's what they all say too. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, I like the lifestyle even. I like the needles. She was like, I like all of it. And I was like, I cannot ever say that. I'm a meth guy. I like meth. I like pipes. And I like being up for 6 days. And she was like, oh no, I like sleeping. And I was like, I don't. Up and down, they don't get along so well, but they can find a common ground.
Out of nowhere, he did, of course.
Uppers and downers don't get along well together, but I managed to do it okay. I did okay. Where did my glass go? I brought it over there, but I didn't open the bottle. That is all right. I had to wake that girl up like 5 times. She would just straight up full-blown nod out and die. You'd have to wake her up. You know, it wasn't exactly an overdose. It was just nodding out on too much heroin. It's terrifying. And she was such a cool girl, too. She was like a rock star's kid. She was a badass girl. But, I mean, her want for that drug was like all-encompassing. I've never met a worse fiend than her. And she was a 17-year-old girl, too. Really hot white girl. She met me and she was like, I like drug dealers. That's the first thing she said to me. She was like, I like drug dealers and I think we should hang out. And I was like, I like drug dealers too. And I was like, yeah, I think we should hang out. And she was like, yeah, I'm your boss. That's how we met, by the way. She was like, I'm your boss, by the way. And I was like, what? She came on like that girl from the, like, what's her name from The Gentleman, right? Susie from The Gentleman. She came on like Susie. She was a lot like Susie. She was a lot like that. She was from rich aristocratic blood and all this. And she came on like Susie from The Gentleman. It was insane. And she was like, I'm your boss, by the way. And I'm like, what do you mean you're my boss? I like my buddy just told me to come introduce myself to you. And she was like, I'm your boss now. I am your black connection in downtown. And I was like, oh. And she was like, I use too much of it. And I was like, oh, okay. And she was like, yeah, I use too much heroin, but that's okay. I'm a drug dealer, and I'm your drug dealer, and I'm your boss now. She was very clear about this, and I was like, oh, okay. And then we proceeded to sell thousands of dollars of black tar heroin to people that would call me and crawl up my fucking thigh with a knife if I let them, you know? Terrifying people. And I did it for about 7 months, I think, before I was like, I don't need the black tar heroin money anymore, and it's making me incredibly fucking like paranoid to travel with it, and I'm also smoking it a lot. And I told him, I was like, I cannot end up a heroin junkie and maintain being a drug dealer. And he was like, okay, valid point. I'm going to take you out of it. I was like, thank you. I've always been a meth person. I would never voluntarily choose black tar heroin over meth. And he was like, I understand. I don't meet too many people who are able to do that. So he was like, I see that you are able to do that. I see that you have not fucked up on heroin. So I'm just going to take you off of it. And he just stopped requiring me to do that. He made her do it again. You know, she didn't want to do it. She wanted to get high all day. So they brought me in because I was responsible, you know, and I did. I picked up their black trade for, like, I don't know, 7 months or something like that downtown. It meant meeting really scary fucking people at like 16th and Race and shit like that, or 16th and Sherman and shit like that, right near Park Hill, right on the street. You meet them on like some corner. You have the Uber driver take you like 2 blocks over, 1 block over, something like that. And you tell them, I've got to go return somebody's ID and I'll be back in 5 minutes here, run the meter. And they love hearing this. And they're like, okay, cool. And you just walk down the block and you meet somebody on a corner and they want black tar heroin. And if they don't get it, they're going to kill you. Like, if they don't get that heroin, they're going to kill you. It is very obvious on their fucking face that if something messes up the drug deal, or if I try to stick them, or if I give them a sack that isn't right, or isn't, you know, good product and stuff, they're liable to goddamn kill me. Like, I mean that, like, full-blown kill me. If I cross those junkies, they will kill me. So I learned very quickly not to do that. And one of the things I was very good at is, even if I was up for 6 days, I don't believe I ever did miss weigh. And I know because I would be like, all right, like, you know, all right, we're dealing with this guy in 5 minutes, you know, and I'm looking at the scale and it's saying 3.5. It's not 3.4. It's 3.5 with a bag tear and all this stuff. It's 1.75. It's you know, it's 1. That's it. And there's no more, no less, nothing. And I weighed to the cent all of the 2.5 years or something that I was in the heavy stuff. And like, well, I was in meth. I wouldn't consider meth heavy. I consider black and pills heavy, but I wouldn't consider meth really that heavy because it's so goddamn common. But black is really heavy. It's a very heavy charge, and it's just scary, and it scares the shit out of people when they see it too, and they'll narc you out and stuff like that. So, but they won't do that for meth. They will, but they're not the same. And so, and eventually I just got out of it. I was like, I cannot sell people's sickness back to them, you know, anymore. Meth, you know why they want it, because it's like this euphoric, and it gets them very high, and it keeps them awake so they can work or clean or play video games or whatever. You know why they're doing meth, but black tar heroin is sort of like they're in a Russian roulette with overdose. So if they survive shooting up or smoking like an entire foil, you know, like half a gram of heroin shooting up like half a gram, or smoking half a gram on a foil or something like that, if they survive it, they're lucky, you know, because they just nod the fuck out and don't ever start breathing again. It happens all the time. So, like, you know, and that's why I got out of it. I was like, sooner or later, I'm going to sell to somebody who doesn't ever wake up again the next day, and it's going to be my fault. And so I didn't use that as my excuse. I said, I am starting to smoke the black tar heroin. It is making me incredibly erratic in a way that I don't like. And that was the excuse I used with P to get out of selling black for him downtown. And I did do it for like 7 months too. I met so many goddamn crazy people in Denver.
Out of the secret passageway behind the bike display.
I'm not happy about it, but I mean, like, those people, they were desperate. They really wanted it. I've never seen it. I've like, okay, dudes who have never had sex before don't fiend like these people fiend. I've never seen a human want something so badly before. It is hard to say no to it.
Nobody in the store had realized that. There seems to be a little confusion over the final chapters of the criminal escapades of Roofman. It's usually wrongly reported. The Roofman.
It's weird because I did not get that response. I was like, well, this is cool. It's kind of like really hard marijuana. It's like marijuana that actually works. You know, it like actually does like dumb you out and make you really slow, really happy, and really like, I can't pay attention to this, but everything's beautiful because I'm high on heroin or whatever. But no, it's actually like, you know, it's I don't know.
Caught again during this particular heist.
I miss it terribly. I miss smoke. I miss chasing the dragon very bad. It's like one of my favorite things to do is chasing a fucking black trail down a tinfoil. I don't know if you've ever actually chased the dragon down the fucking rabbit hole to your death or whatever, but I have. And like, my God, smoking a black tar trail on fucking, like, on tinfoil, that high, it's the same sort of stuff that orgasms are cut from. Same sort of energy, same sort of dopamine, same sort of rush, same sort of feel. It's basically like liquid orgasm, you know?
It's not the most well-documented criminal
And I don't like that. I don't like how strong it is. It was a strong drug.
case in the world. If we dig a little deeper into the truth, we find that he actually got away with this one. Armed with one of the stolen handguns, he ordered everyone...
And I think about it all the time, but I don't want to do it. That's the difference. I think about it all the time because I'm an ex-drug addict. All I can think about is methamphetamine and heroin. It's one of the reasons why I talk about it so much all the time. Right? But... like, I don't ever want to do those things ever again. There's like, and that's the God's honest truth. I really don't. I don't want to ever jeopardize my fucking freedom like that ever again. To me, the drugs are the abandonment of your American identity. If you get labeled by them for drugs or sent to jail for it, that is the death of your Americanness.
to get down.
It is the. I mean, the drug war was the death of America, in my opinion.
Floor around the back of the store. Wait, I'm just realizing, did he just rob? He robbed a pawn shop, right? Do they have guns in?
No, not in the porn shop. No, probably not. No, because the people who come in are liable to try and rob the safe, and then they might use the gun against you.
In safes, or are they just hanging out?
No, the guns are never hanging out in America. You get a nasty charge.
How do you steal?
Gun charges in America are some of the most horrible things about America right now. We are a fucking country who loves their guns. At least 51% of us love their goddamn guns like they love their mothers. We have to accept this. It's not something we're going to be able to get around. So, like, you know, if that is the case, then you know...
guns from a pawn shop by just breaking into the pawn shop. Surely they have to be locked.
You don't leave guns lying out right now because they're like the most valuable thing in America.
Away. Jesus.
I think. Not in terms of value, but in terms of value. Like value being like in italics, right? Not value as in money. I'm talking about value as in like what they actually represent to people. Like I would say guns are the highest value in America right now for what they actually attain you in terms of their power. I think the only other thing would be like cancer meds or heroin.
Armed with one of the stolen handguns, he ordered everyone to get down on the floor around the back of the store. He didn't have many alternatives, as branches of Toys R Us don't usually come with handy walk-in freezers.